Pirates Fire Dragon Roar Chapter 321 to 340. Chapter 321 Inheritor. Fast, extremely fast. There are only 2 knives, but there seem to be dozens of blue arcs streaking across the air at the same time, like waves coming from the ocean. Heavy. Every knife is extremely heavy. Obviously the power is more dispersed, and the strength is definitely not comparable to the 2-knife style of holding a sword with both hands, but each knife has a terrifying strength, as if this is not a knife, but a real tsunami is coming. Unrivaled. Tight, extremely tight, it blocked all the ways for the general to dodge, and he couldn't avoid it, and he couldn't dodge every knife. All the general could do was to attack and keep attacking. Ding 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 ding. The continuous banging sounds are as dense as rain. The 2 men, General and Sakata, have given up even moving. It seems that there are only opponents left in their world. Because they don't look like death, because they all want to kill each other, they keep swinging their swords. PFF'd. Sakata's arms slammed open, but he didn't care at all. His heart was already filled with anger, and all he wanted was to kill the man in front of him, that's all. Scoff. The general suddenly turned sideways, but was still a step late, and a hole was directly cut in the chest. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Che, what a tough kid. Momonosuke. Momonosuke. Wake up. Momonosuke. Don't scare Dad. This kind of weak, very sad voice came from one side, obviously a man who would smile even with a sharp blade, but now he is sad like a child. Damn. Sakata's eyes slammed. He knew that there was no time to waste with this bastard, and the knife in his left hand suddenly flipped, holding the knife in the opposite direction. 2-knife flow, flowing water, tidal. Banshin suddenly began to spin, and the majestic flying slashes roared out, just like the tides on the coast, endless, huge and heavy, extremely terrifying slashes. Cut. General snorted lowly, the long knife stood up, and Haki covered it without reservation, blocking him in front of him. Hey! Terrifying power surged from the blade, and the general couldn't hold back his figure at all. He was pushed back and forth by the slashing strikes from Sakata, and instantly pulled away from Sakata. Teacher. Sakata had no intention of chasing after the victory, and turned around and ran directly to Kazuki Oden's side. Kuri's daimyo sat cross-legged on the ground, his arms around his child who had lost his life, and the blood flowed down from his chest completely unstoppable, but even such a wound could not hide his heart of pain. Teacher. Sakata was suddenly speechless, tears welling up from his eyes. This man who was just like his father had reached the end of his life today. Sakata. Kazuki Oden squinted his eyes, his voice was extremely weak, his heart had been shattered, he was really out of luck. Crying. Brat. No. Sakata let the tears flow down his face, but answered like this on his mouth. Nothing to be sad about. Brat. Kazuki Oden said, my voyage is over, my life is over. I'm not sad for myself, so why are you sad? Quote. Sakata was silent. I just feel sorry for Momonosuke. The father hugged his child tightly, and the little boy still had a warm feeling. This child, he is still so young, he has not seen this world, he has not been to the sea, he hasn't met a life and death partner, and he hasn't experienced the best things in the world. Tears flowed from the eyes of the man. Even the man who defeated the storms of the New World with One Piece, King of Pirates, surpassed all pirates, and achieved unprecedented greatness, even he would cry. I also want to watch him grow up, watch him go to sea, watch him introduce me to his partners, watch him get married and have children. Kazuki Oden muttered to himself, he hasn't experienced anything. Really, what a pity. Sakata, you say, as a father, am I a failure too? Kazuki Oden asked suddenly. No. Sakata quickly replied, absolutely not, the teacher is the most qualified father in the world. You have taught Momonosuke all your excellent qualities. Really? Kazuki Oden smiled reluctantly, then this child's short life, maybe. There will come a time when I will be happy because of my father. Yeah. Sakata's voice was full of tears. Momonosuke must be very happy. To have such a father. He must be happy. Really? Kazuki Oden laughed suddenly, spitting blood and smiling. Yeah. That's great. That's great. That kid, he, is also happy. Quote. Sakata was speechless. Promise me, Sakata. Kazuki Oden said, promise me. Yes, teacher. Sakata nodded slightly. Blinded by hatred. Kazuki Oden said this, looking a little excited. My business has nothing to do with you, don't let hatred bind you. Sakata, I know you will never give up on avenging me, but I still want to say, you don't qualify to avenge me. Because, this is my battle. It's not the hatred you should bear. Kazuki Oden said, you are like my child, and I am looking forward to you just like Momonosuke, the day you go to the sea, the day you find a good partner who lives and dies, and I look forward to the day you start your voyage like a real man. You are still young, what you should do is to find your adventures and not be bound by fearless hatred. Promise me, Sakata, go to sea. Give me a good life. Live a good life, even if it is. Teacher, please, please. Be sure to live well. Quote. Sakata's icy poker face disintegrated instantly, tears and snot flowing freely without his own control. Yes. Really? Kazuki Oden asked. Yeah. Sakata nodded. That's great, that's great. Kazuki Oden looked very happy. Since it's sincere, that's great. I've been waiting for the day when you tell me you want to go to sea. I wanted to keep waiting, but now it seems I've run out of time, but that's fine, I've wanted to tell you that for a long time. Congratulations, you have graduated. My child. With a sincere smile, the man's voice got lower and lower until it disappeared. Quote. Sakata was silent. Suddenly, he threw away the long sword in his right hand and pulled out the saber that belonged to Kazuki Oden. Thank you, teacher. But, I lied to you. Sakata looked at the general beside him and said, please forgive me. Dead. Trouble. General watched Kazuki Oden lose his life, and said with some annoyance, that beast is going crazy now. Besides. This kid. Kara. A clear and audible sound of bone cracking sounded in the sky. Vlad's eyes seemed to protrude, a huge fist slammed on his back, and blood overflowed from Vlad's mouth. Out, with the high-altitude gust of wind unknowingly flew there. Whoosh. The majestic power instantly acted on Vlad's body, and Vlad's tall body cut through the air like a bullet out of the chamber and flew into the distance. Bang! Bang! Ripples in the air dissipated. Kaido used a move similar to the moon step in Marine Rokushiki to gallop in the air, and in the blink of an eye, his body was close to Vlad again. Well, 3 broken bones. Vlad thought so as he vomited blood and flew. The power is stronger than before. Monster. Don't try to run, kid. With such a roar, the monster named Kaido has appeared in front of Vlad again, with a big mouth and a ferocious face. Who said I was going to run? Vlad's eyes narrowed suddenly. Loki. The jewel-like thing on Vlad's forehead suddenly glowed, and a beam of light the size of a baby's fist shot out from above. Ah! Kaido didn't react at all. The speed of the beam was too fast. Kaido didn't have time to use armament at all. The beam penetrated Kaido's body in just an instant, punched a hole directly in the position of the relatively soft stomach, and dissipated in the distant sky. Kaido screamed. His internal organs were almost melted, and the flames were even burning on the wounds in his body. The speed of the light beam appearing and disappearing is too fast, and Kaido was seriously injured in just an instant. Vlad's eyes were visibly pale, and it was really not an easy task to condense the flames that could penetrate Kaido's body with one blow. The consumption of physical strength was too serious. Little devil. Such a roar, the wounded beast is roaring. This. Vlad's eyes changed suddenly. He had seen Kaido's wound. The part that had been directly carbonized by the high temperature began to regenerate rapidly, and the granulation began to grow visible to the naked eye, even for the ordinary 4 Emperor Admiral grade. For the strong, it should be considered a fatal injury, but the recovery started immediately. Monster. Vlad gritted his teeth, clenched his right fist, and the flames lingered. Get out of the way. Boom. A powerful fist slammed heavily on Kaido's head, and this beast was coaxed directly into the sky by Vlad. Can't win. Such thoughts lingered in Vlad's mind. Not an opponent at all, Kaido, even if he can inflict lethal damage, he can't help this monster at all. Even if he doesn't defend, it's really not easy for Vlad to kill him. Chapter 322 Strategic Shift. Who? Vlad was gasping for breath. The previous blow that pierced Kaido's name, Loki, consumed too much of his physical strength. Loki was Vlad's previous life of mischief and fire in Norse mythology. God, who is hated among the gods by tricks. Just like Loki, Vlad's attack was extremely terrifying, condensed to the extreme, and the attack used by consuming most of his stamina was an attack no different from a nightmare to the enemy, and the speed was already approaching. Extremely, it is not an attack that Haki can react to at all. Even a guy like Katakuri who can foresee the future, it is not easy to avoid such an attack. Being able to see does not mean that his neural reflexes can keep up. Very simple truth. The speed is not the most difficult part of this blow, but the penetrating power. Even the monster-like body like Kaido can be easily penetrated. It is completely proportional to the effort. But, unfortunately, this move that can already be used as a nirvana, Loki didn't do anything to Kaido. The monster is like, no, the recovery ability that has far surpassed the monster makes Vlad really there's nothing to say. Even if it can hit Kaido hard, but this guy can recover right away, what's there to fight? Vlad found that he was a little proud. Jurong mode can indeed fight against the 4 emperors, but obviously it can't prevail. Even if it can be maintained all the time, if you want to keep fighting with Kaido, you will only be consumed to death. Nothing else he chose. This is the power of the strongest creature. The attack power is not necessarily the strongest. The Haki is not necessarily the strongest. The constitution is not necessarily the strongest, but such immortality has no solution. If you can't win, Vlad's mind has such an idea. It hurts. With such a roar, that monster was not completely shot down by Vlad, and immediately stepped on the air and rose into the sky. The speed was even better than before. Damn, has it evolved again? Vlad clenched his fists. Where is the limit? Is it really a monster that can evolve infinitely? Or, have you not pushed this monster to the limit yet? Boom. A terrifying explosion suddenly occurred, and the white gold color spread out with the storm. Just a pair of punches can produce such a momentum. If these two people fought on the ground, everything around them would have been blasted to pieces. No more left. Vlad felt that his right arm was shaking, and the terrifying power was transmitted from Kaido's arm. Not only the speed, but also the strength was further strengthened than before. Monsters, real monsters. Whoosh. The terrifying power was transmitted to the body. Vlad was completely unable to maintain his figure, and was directly blasted away by Kaido. Of course, Kaido was not much better, and was also blasted down by Vlad's fist. Don't, it's too arrogant. Whoosh. Vlad roared like this. His heart was full of anger. Such a gaffe is really ugly. Even if the opponent was the 4 emperors, Vlad was unwilling to accept such a battle. The 2 pairs of wings on the back slammed, and the tall white gold body disappeared in the blink of an eye. Accompanied by the violent wind, it rushed to Kaido's side in an instant. Vlad's right arm shone with dazzling light, and the dazzling light even made Kaido Vivi narrow his eyes. Dragon Fist, Meteor Strike. Hey! Kaido didn't wait to be beaten. The huge fist slammed out before Vlad could attack. This monster's nerve reflex was so strong that his head hadn't reacted yet. His fist was already instinctive. Blasted out. You can see it, you can see it. Vlad closed his eyes and screamed in his heart. Observation Haki was running at full force. Kaido's every move was presented in his mind like a 3D model, like a slow-motion playback in his mind expand. There. Flames shot out from Vlad's back shoulder, his body slammed down, and crashed directly into Kaido's arms. Kaido's powerful punch couldn't touch him at all, which was at this time. Vlad's attack has arrived. Bang! The gleaming fist slammed hard against Kaido's stomach. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion was born from this. The sky was shocked, the wind swept through, and above the sky, the curling white clouds swept away. Hey! In the storm, Vlad flew back upside down, his arms almost lost consciousness, his chest was a little sunken, and a lot of blood was stained on the originally white skin. Such a zero-distance explosion can't distinguish between enemy and foe, even if the flame will not cause damage to Vlad, but the shock wave is fair to both of them, and the terrifying explosion instantly brought a lot of damage to Vlad. Who? What? Vlad's eyes froze suddenly, so fast. No need for recovery time at all. In the smoke that filled the sky, a passage was suddenly opened up, the smoke and dust in the middle were swept away, and something rushed out of the smoke and dust. The speed was so fast that a normal person might not be able to leave a trace of afterimage, even if it was Ifra's eyesight can only see a little shadow. Kaido's speed has improved again. It is obvious that the battlefield is in the sky, but this monster is like fighting in its own home field. He has to be skilled, the sky can't stop him at all. There was a huge wound on Kaido's chest, the bones were thick, and the internal organs were clearly visible. Vlad's blow directly broke through the double defense of his hockey and brought heavy injuries to this monster, but it was useless. It can be seen to the naked eye that on Kaido's wound, the granulation is growing wildly, and the efficiency is even faster than when he was penetrated by Loki just now. This guy, Kaido, thinks that he does not defend against the opponent's attack, but only uses attack to win. Fighting, he doesn't need to go to defense at all. Bang! Vlad's left fist and Kaido's right fist collided hard. Vlad actually felt a sense of powerlessness. Crap! Vlad screamed in his heart. Boom! The strength of the two fists separated the two. Kaido's second punch had already hit Vlad's stomach heavily. Vlad's right arm was sore and weak at this time, and he was completely unable to resist Kaido's attack. Hey! Vlad bowed like a shrimp, and blood spurted out. Ha 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 ha, what's wrong, little devil, the fist has no power. Bang! Crack! Kaido's third punch slammed into Vlad's head, and Vlad heard the sound of a clear bone fracture, but his head went blank and he couldn't react at all. Whoosh! Vlad was directly blown away by Kaido's punch, and was thrown towards the distant sky. Scoff! Vlad could come back to his senses. Kaido's body had already appeared behind Vlad's back. Ha 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 ha! With such a wanton smile. Boom mmmmm. Quote. The ferocious knee slammed heavily on Vlad's back, and the strong impact was almost like smashing Vlad's internal organs. Kara. PFF'd. Vlad felt that his body was about to be split in half. Kaido's attack was very simple and didn't look cool. Perhaps, this is the so-called cleverness. Whoosh! Vlad soared into the sky like a rocket, and at the same time, under the severe pain, his thoughts finally began to recover. No, Zhurong is about to lose it. Can no longer support it, and the Zhurong mode is about to be lifted, and I no longer have the strength to fight Kaido. Have to run. Vlad thought so, since it has been confirmed that he can't win, then of course there is only one choice in front of Vlad. If you can't win, run away. This is the principle of the world, and Vlad is not willing to go against it. Little devil. However, just because Vlad wanted to run didn't mean that Kaido was willing to let him run, but the mighty body like a demon had already appeared in front of him. Are you addicted, stupid? Vlad reluctantly showed a mocking smile, not very panicked. Although his physical strength has reached the limit, Zhurong will soon be unable to maintain it, but don't forget, he still has a skill that does not require physical strength to use. Prometheus, the dragon holding the candle. Whispering so softly, the ring behind Vlad suddenly changed, dazzling light was emitted from above, and the volume suddenly expanded and stretched. Superior. Roar. An incomparably huge, long dragon made of flames roared out from Vlad's back. What? Kaido only had time to exclaim, and the huge fire dragon's mouth had already bit Kaido's body. CCCCC. The sound like a barbecue came from the place where Kaido was bitten by the dragon. Give me down. Vlad shouted so loudly. The huge fire dragon bit Kaido, turned around suddenly, and bombarded the ground. Whew. Vlad breathed heavily, and then he laughed. It's not easy. If you fight again, you won't be able to walk. Goodbye, Kaido. Strategic transfer. Whoa haha, you can't win. Now that the distance has been drawn, of course, there is no need to continue to play with Kaido here. The flames are spewing, and Vlad has been lost in the sky. Yo. Chapter 323 Wano Kuni ended. Ding. What a hassle. The airtight man who held the long sword in both hands and waved it like a water curtain sighed. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Kazuki family station, which had been cut to pieces by the amazing Slash, and the two were still fighting. Two men with hatred as deep as the sea are fighting. It's not right to say that. In fact, there is only one person who has the ultimate hatred for the other party. Of course, it can only be Sakata, whose most respected teacher and his only descendant were killed by the other party. Young people are really not easy. The man Sakata hated, the general of Wano Kuni, sighed. In terms of strength, he is no weaker than your teacher. So much nonsense. Sakata crossed his two knives, his eyes fixed on his enemy. Two-knife flow, hit the water. The cold light flashed, and two poignant knife lights with a azure blue halo tore apart the air fiercely, possessing the astonishing power to cut through everything. Hey! The general provoked violently, and his strong foot strength instantly made him jump into the air more than 10 meters, perfectly avoiding Banshin's attack. Chi. Shape of an X smashed through the air, brushed under the general's feet, and flew far away. Visible to the naked eye, everything that stood in front of the Slash was torn apart, whether it was a rock or a building. In the same way, it was easily cut in half by Sakata's Slash. It's amazing. The general raised his sword above his head in both hands, and said, "There is no warrior stronger than you in the entire Wano Kuni. But unfortunately it is an enemy." Torrential rain. The general shouted loudly and swung his sword sharply. The pitch-black slashes roared out, not as huge slashes like Sakata, but as small and densely packed as rain. The black rain fell from the sky in an instant, and the world was directly shrouded in darkness. Thousands of dense black raindrop-like slashes swept towards Sakata. Although he is a damned fellow, swordsmanship is really nothing to say. Sakata narrowed his eyes and blocked two knives in front of him. Knife flow, flowing water, tornado. Hey! Banshin suddenly began to spin, the air suddenly rioted and began to roll, and a blue tornado suddenly appeared, just like a waterspout formed on the sea, carrying earth-shattering power. Gia. Quote. The violent tornado swept through, and instantly swept the rainstorm slashes towards Sakata. Although the number was extremely amazing, the power of a single slash was really uncompromising. Sakata's tornado easily knocked out the general's attack. Crack. Oh, that's awesome. The general gently landed in the distance and distanced himself from Sakata. I suddenly don't want to kill you anymore. But this uncle really wants to kill you. Idiot. Sakata thought so. You don't think you can let me spare your life after killing my teacher? Although the teacher won't let me take revenge because of hatred, but you will surely die, idiot. As for the reason, there is only one, very simple reason, that is. You pissed me off. Hey, it's Sakata, right? The general tilted his head, held a knife in one hand, and put the long knife on his shoulder, and said, "What a talent, what a pity." Ha, pity. Is it a pity that Mr. Sakata needs you to come? You just have to die well. Sakata's face was cold and he didn't speak. This man didn't mean to talk more to the person he hated. If you go against me, there is only death. General said, it would be a pity for a man like you to die like this, so. The general stretched out his left hand, and his face was still veiled like a self-deception, but even just looking at his eyes could see his rebelliousness. Come down to my hands. General said, Kazuki Oden is dead, and you can't save it no matter what. If you risk your life for a dead man, wouldn't it be too stupid? I don't think you're the kind of man who sticks to that rigid bushido. Crack. The general jerked back, and the azure blue sword light flashed across. This was Banshin's answer. Well, it looks exactly like your teacher. The general straightened his body and gently stroked his face with his left hand. There was a small wound on the bridge of his nose, and blood flowed from the middle. Respectful but frustrating. Then, it will only let you stay here. The general's eyes sharpened, and he said, it is because I admire you so much that I can only kill you. It's such a shame, Wano-kuni probably won't have a good samurai like you again. The general said that there is actually some sadness here, and there is some sadness in his eyes. I have to say that this man's psychological condition can be said to be very complicated. Whoosh. Is Mr. Kazuki dead? The voice of such a somewhat weak man came from the sky. Isn't this a complete defeat? Sakata turned his head, and the fiery red dragon was already flapping his wings and hovering in the air. Fire dragon. The general looked at Vlad, who was suspended in the air, in amazement. You guy, can't you? Could it be that monster? Impossible. The general was already dumbfounded, his eyes staring like eggs. How could that monster fail? Mr. Vlad. Sakata was also a little surprised. Although he was not very familiar with Kaido, he knew how powerful that enemy was just by looking at the solemn expressions of Vlad and Kazuki Oden just now. Came back. Don't get me wrong. Vlad waved his hand and said, I don't have the strength to defeat that monster now. Cough 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 cough. Vlad's violent cough was a good testament to his point. Blood poured out of his mouth and nostrils. Kaido's big fist was no joke, although there was no direct trauma, but, in fact, the damage to Vlad's internal organs was definitely not light. But you can still do it if you want to run. Really? General laughed suddenly, that means the beasts are on their way, right? If I hold you back, you'll be dead, right? Hold me. Vlad looked surprised, who do you think you are? Quote. The general was silent for a while, then said, so proud. Okay, Mr. Sakata. Vlad said this, his eyes were a little flowery and his mind was a little confused, since Mr. Kazuki is dead, don't stay anymore. Quote. Sakata didn't speak, just watched the general opposite him clench his sword. I don't have the power to help you solve your opponent right now, and I don't think you want me to help you either. Vlad said, so, let's go. If you don't go, you will be dead when the monster comes. You can't solve this guy in a short time. It doesn't matter if you die. Sakata said slowly. Forget it. Vlad tilted Vivi's head, I guess so too. Flamethrower. Hey. It was just a flash of white gold light, and the general was amazed, but he couldn't stop it. There was nothing in front of him, and neither Vlad nor Sakata disappeared. There. White gold flames fell from the sky and smashed on the bodies of the last two descendants of the Kazuki family in the distance, instantly burning their bodies to ashes. After all, Kazuki Oden is also Vlad's teacher. And don't let the enemy insult him. Chapter 324 Fire Dragon's Mouth Cannon. Novel.org, the fastest update of the latest chapter of Pirate's Fire Dragon Roar. What are you doing, asshole? He was obviously a taciturn man in the setting, but now, this man who always likes to hide his thoughts in his heart and say everything in his heart without saying it out, is now roaring wildly. What did you do, asshole? The man named Sakata yelled, what are you talking about? I'm going to kill you, bastard. I'm killing you now, believe it or not. Hey, you're swearing. This is not your character setting. Vlad looked a little surprised. This is not good. If you are like this, the character setting will collapse. Who cares about you? Asshole, let me go back. Put me back. Sakata exclaimed. Let me go back. Asshole. The two were no longer on land, but were flying above the sky. Vlad grabbed Sakata's shoulder with his left hand and flew him above the sky. The white gold flames spurted from his body, providing him with strong motivation. Just now, just when Sakata wanted to fight the general, Vlad suddenly took him away with force, flew directly into the sky, and flew towards the border of Wano Kuni. How about Sakata? Vlad understands very, but understanding does not mean agreeing, and if Sakata stays, waiting for that guy from Kaido to come over, Sakata probably won't have a second fate other than death. Is also a disciple of Kazuki Oden. In a sense, he is also Vlad's apprentice brother. Vlad can't watch him die, not to mention, this man is still a swordsman that Vlad values. Vlad is if you want to pull him into your own boat, of course you can't let him die like this. Let you go back. Vlad said, do you want to go back and die? Listen carefully, that monster's voice. Even though it is far away, I can still hear such a voice, very angry, even the clouds in the sky are shaken. Fire Dragon. Did you hear me? Vlad smiled and looked very proud. I'm afraid that the monster is very angry when I suddenly slipped away. If you go back now, I'm afraid you will face the furious beast. So what, if you are afraid to run away because you have a strong enemy? Sakata was very excited, and he didn't look calm as usual. Then why do you go to sea? If you choose to escape just because of fear, what's the point of being alive? Vlad looked a little surprised, and then laughed. It's a set of chicken soup. But, Mr. Sakata, Vlad said, in the sea, there is one thing I have to tell you, you have to run. Just having fighting spirit is useless. Vlad smiled. In this sea, there is no way how many people who have no strength will die every day. Oh, speaking of the sea, this has already flown out of Wano Kuni's territory. Above the sea. Just like what Vlad said, below the two people, it is no longer Wano Kuni's territory, but the Blue Sea. It doesn't matter if you die. Sakata said, as long as I can kill that guy. What if I die? Really? Are you angry about Mr. Kazuki's death? It's natural. Mr. Kazuki told me that your parents died very early. You must think of Mr. Kazuki as your father. Vlad said, I know this feeling very well. It's very uncomfortable, right? But, what can you do? Kill that man. Who can you kill now? Can you still hold your knife? What? Sakata frowned, turned his head, and said angrily, what are you talking about? What am I talking about? Mr. Sakata, what are you talking about? Vlad looked down at Sakata and said, are you a person who talks so much? Are you a person who can lose control of your emotions like this? Mr. Sakata. What are you confused about? What? Sakata's eyes widened suddenly. Mr. Kazuki told me, he said, you can be a teacher long ago. In terms of strength, you can start a school by yourself, but he has never admitted that you have such qualifications. Why don't you know that, Mr. Sakata? Vlad's tone was very calm. What are you afraid of? Haven't you always been yearning for the sea? Why have you been hiding behind Mr. Kazuki? Can't you find your way by yourself? Don't tell me, do you want to hide behind your father for the rest of your life? Learn to grow up too. You. Sakata was speechless. Wake up, silly boy. Vlad said, Mr. Kazuki is dead, there is no one who has been leading the way for you, and the rest of the way is up to you. In this sea, all decisions have to be made by yourself. Okay. So don't say anything about going back to kill that guy, and cherish this life. Live well, I've listened to it for so long, I personally hope you will listen to your teacher's words for the last time. Quote. Sakata was speechless and lowered his face. Vlad couldn't see his expression clearly. I don't have to guess to know, Mr. Kazuki must let you live well before he died. Don't be blinded by hatred, don't go to avenge him, right? Your life should be decided by yourself. Mr. Sakata, there is no more people show you the way again. I just don't want you to fearlessly die. The final decision is up to you. If you have calmed down, tell me whether you want to obey the teacher's words and live, or you want to completely violate the teacher's last words. Go back and die, I respect your choice. Come on, Mr. Sakata, this is the first time you have made such a big decision in your life. Vlad smiled, so, tell me, Mr. Sakata, what's your answer? Quote. The teacher is dead. Sakata finally said this. He knew very well that the man who cared about him like a father was indeed dead, and the teacher who would personally take him to peep at the women's bath was indeed gone. Unstoppable, his tears were completely unstoppable, rushing down like a dike burst. I know, of course I know. Sakata said, he wants me to live well, of course I understand that, but I will never let go of that man. I will never let go of the man who used despicable means to take away the teacher's life. His voice was very steady and calm, completely different from the look of the little beast who seemed to be panicking after the death of the mother beast. I'm going to kill him. I can't follow the teacher's orders on this. Really, it does seem to be your conclusion after careful consideration. Vlad smiled, then I respect you. Do you want me to take you back? However, at the same time, I also intend to obey the teacher's instructions and take a good look at this sea. Sakata said so. Oh. Vlad's eyes lit up, really? Well. Sakata was clearly crying, but the man did answer very clearly. It's like you said it yourself, listen to the teacher's instructions one last time. 25 years old this year, the man who is still crying has finally grown up. Woo ha ha, that's funny. Vlad smiled, and suddenly he asked, Then, Mr. Sakata, can you swim? Yeah. Sakata looked a little surprised, but nodded anyway. That's fine. Vlad nodded and smiled, I have taken you so far just now, it's time for you to take me on a ride. Sakata was surprised and didn't seem to react. Whoosh. It was very abrupt, and the two fell down. Chapter 325 One of Sakata's Sea Rafting. Novel.org, the fastest update of the latest chapter of Pirates Fire Dragon Roar. The sea is clear, and there is a breeze blowing on the blue sea, bringing VV's waves on the sea and rolling up weak waves. The time is in the afternoon, the sky is cloudless, it is the same clean blue as the sea, the sun hangs high in the sky, the sun shines on the sea, with a warm taste, mixed with the fresh air on the sea. Getting up and taking a deep breath is definitely a refreshing feeling. There are rare times when the weather in the New World is like this. Everyone knows that the New World has the most precious weather in the world, just like the most willful woman. Well, in this world, the most willful woman can embody the one who is called the Queen's woman is really a very self-willed weather condition. If there is a disagreement, it will change from cloudless sunny weather to stormy weather with black clouds overwhelming everything. It can be said to be very squeamish. In such weather, if you can leisurely lie on such a deck chair and go fishing, it must be a very enjoyable scene with afternoon tea consisting of a stack of cakes and a cup of iced drink. Of course, the premise of such enjoyment is that on the shore, or on a boat, if such conditions can be met, you may be able to enjoy a wonderful afternoon. However, if you are on the sea, but there is no boat, I am afraid that you will not feel even a little bit of enjoyment anyway. This is the situation I am facing now. My name is Sakata XX. For some unknown reason, all I can say is my surname, and my first name will be blocked inexplicably. It is really helpless thing. Obviously this is the first time to leave Wano-kuni, it is obviously the first time to set foot on the sea, and it is obviously the first time to embark on the road of adventure that you have been looking forward to according to your own wishes, but why is there such a consequence? I'm floating on the ocean, thinking like this. There is a man behind my back, and the name of the man on my back is Ferdinando Vlad, who brought me out of that closed Wano-kuni. To be honest, I thank him a little, not his words, I'm dead now. This man is a capable person, and he lost his strength as soon as he came into contact with water. Of course, the current situation is that even if this man did not touch the water, he would have fainted long ago. He was seriously injured and his body was already somewhat supported. I can't stop, and then it seems that my physical strength is too much. I have completely lost my strength, and he can still take me out of Wano-kuni. What an amazing guy. It was already yesterday, and I suddenly lost my strength. I lost consciousness after saying, "Please," and fell directly into the sea from the sky. It can be said to be very scary. Really a very strange guy. Obviously I haven't been in touch for a long time, and I haven't even said a few words, but this guy can actually entrust his life to me. Now facing such a situation, there is no such thing as the slightest reliance on such a big man. At sea, and this guy is still in a coma. It can be said that he is completely a burden to me now, and has no effect. If something happens, he will only cause trouble for me. According to his current situation, I can abandon him at any time. Although I haven't returned it, but in such a vast sea, I am afraid there are not many such things, right? Everyone has the will to survive, and everyone wants to live, so if there is a conflict between survival and the existence of this guy who is not familiar with it, what will you choose is also very simple, right? So, why is this guy so confident? So confident that I won't give up on him. I don't understand. Are you believing in my dignity as a samurai? I'm sorry if that's the case. I'm one of those people who doesn't care much about form. While thinking about it, I noticed something appeared. It comes from the perception of observation haki. This kind of power in Wano-kuni in the past was called the mind's eye. It is a power that a good samurai must master. Of course, I am also very skilled, and I can easily perceive the huge life from below the sea surface. The breath came. Roar. Across the thick seawater, I still heard the roar of the giant beast below the sea surface. The calm sea surface was violently turbulent, the sea surface began to bulge, and something huge was about to emerge. Almost at the same time, a huge vortex formed on the sea surface, and the water rolled down like a funnel. Of course, I was also in the middle of this vortex. Just looking down gently, I could already see that the mouth of the giant beast below the sea seemed to want to swallow me in. To be honest, I was a little excited, very excited, because I was really hungry. I fought fiercely with the enemy for a long time yesterday, and the physical consumption was quite considerable, and then I didn't eat anything at sea. After rafting for a little in a night, to be honest, I was really hungry. Although it didn't affect the next rafting, it was really uncomfortable to be hungry. The whirlpool carries an amazing attraction. This giant beast under the sea has already brought amazing power before it appears. For normal people, I am afraid there is no other choice except to be swallowed completely. However, fortunately, I am not an ordinary person. PFF'd. With heavy force on my feet, I flew from the sea to the sky with Vlad on my back. Although it sounds incredible, it is actually not difficult. The sea water is much easier to step on than the air, and it is better to exert force. Boom. Almost at the same time, when I flew into the sky, the monster hidden under the sea also revealed its true face. The sea splashed, the waves were turbulent, and the huge mouth was exposed, full of ferocious sharp teeth, disgusting. The stench can be smelled from far away. Very huge body, it is estimated that the whole body has exceeded 100 meters. It is really amazing. It has a head like a cow and spots like a cow, but the lower body is a huge body like a snake, with scales. The package, this kind of creature, is generally called the Sea King, although it is rarely seen in Wano-kuni, but I also know it. Just like it wants to eat me, I also want to eat it. As I said before, I am very hungry. One-shot flow. I was carrying Vlad in my left hand, and my right hand was already on the hilt of the knife around my waist. Because I walked too hastily, I didn't even have the scabbard on, I just reluctantly wrapped the knife around my clothes. The sword I hold is the teacher's saber, Wano-kuni's long-established famous sword, the chrysanthemum character. If placed in the sea, it should be regarded as the level of the 21st work of the big quick sword. Aye. Halen. Chapter 326 Sakata's Sea Rafting Story Part 2. The red blood covers the blue sea, and a strong fishy smell will be transmitted to the distant place with the sea breeze. Facts have proved that not only human beings, but also many animals have red blood. In the same way, it has also been proved that not only human beings, but also sea kings will die if their heads are chopped off. I am deeply touched by this. The waves on the sea have subsided, the sea has returned to its previous tranquility, and the warm sunshine is still lazily sprinkled on the sea, making people feel very comfortable. Everything seems to be the same as before. If there is any difference, it is there, and that is where I am now. I'm not soaking in the sea now, although it won't be a big problem, but it's uncomfortable enough to soak in the water all the time. Mean. Speaking of young lady, it is a pity that Curry's bathhouse will never go back. It's a pity, well, it should be a pity, that the two people who used to peep at the bathhouse with me are no longer here. It's a pity. The two of them won't be able to peep at me in heaven, and I can't see the beautiful angel sister. Thinking about it this way, it's suddenly a little hot, and those two guys will happily peep at the angel sister's bathhouses in the sky. Damn, I really envy. Can the nutrition of heaven keep up with their consumption? Closer to home, I was sitting on the body of the sea king who attacked me before. The sea king whose head was directly chopped off by me was already dead and could no longer die. Its corpse floated on the sea, forming a small island, just for that I rested my feet, and it was more convenient that the ingredients were just bent over to get them. I am now preparing my first meal in the past 2 days. I am really hungry. However, the conditions are very simple. There is no fire or water at sea. It is impossible for me to cook some food. Fortunately, Wano-kuni has a dish that has been around for a long time, sashimi. Although I don't know if the sea king is considered a fish, since it lives in the sea, it should not be too bad, right? It's not me, although my cooking skills are not very good, but as a samurai, I still consider myself a samurai with outstanding swordsmanship. The sashimi that I cut out was transparent and had no thickness at all, so it looked very appetizing. It's a pity that there are only fish fillets here, and nothing else. Forget it, don't expect too much at this time. I'm starting to enjoy my, dinner. How to say the taste, as expected. It is quite unpalatable. Sure enough, sea kings are different from ordinary fish. The meat is a little soft, rich in water, and has a fishy smell that cannot be removed. Sure enough, the taste of untreated meat is really bad. But there is no way, don't pay so much attention to it in the sea. Having something to eat is so satisfying, I still have to frown to fill my stomach. Well, I think this guy Vlad should be hungry too. I turned my head and looked at the pile of sashimi left in front of me, thinking so, don't waste food in the sea. Well, it seems that this guy Vlad really likes eating sashimi. Is it because I feed it too slowly when he frowns? Don't worry, Mr. Vlad, I will definitely satisfy you. This sea king is still very big, you can have as many as you want. I don't want to make my savior hungry, plus the sea is really boring, I can only cut sashimi to pass the time, and soon, Vlad should be full, and he starts to vomit. Well, it looks like I really can't eat it. Now that Mr. Vlad is full, I can have a good rest. I have been rafting in the sea since yesterday. Although I am not very tired, it is a little uncomfortable to have not slept for so long. I lay down, put my hands behind my head, and closed my eyes. Suddenly, many things came to mind: the teacher's affairs, the general's affairs, Wano-kuni's affairs, Mr. Vlad's affairs. Of course there is something about me. What should I do next? Revenge must be required, and the general must be killed, but before that, what should I do? Well, it seems that I am thinking too much about this question now. Now I still think about how to get rid of the current predicament. A person is drifting at sea with a sick number, or when there is no ship, when will he die of hunger and thirst? It's not a strange thing to die at sea. I finally made up my mind and said that I want to go to sea to see it, but it's a bit too miserable to die like this. Thinking like this, a burst of drowsiness quickly surged up, Forget it, let's talk about such a thing tomorrow. Let's wait until Vlad wakes up to discuss this with him. He is a pirate who has sailed the sea for a long time, and he is always more experienced than me in this regard. I gradually lost consciousness. Clap la la la. I woke up again in the sound of a wave of sea waves. I sat up abruptly, and my hands were already on the two swords at my waist. There is no other reason. In front of me, there is already a big boat with a pirate flag, and there is a man on the bow, a very majestic man. A very strong, super strong guy, just standing there exuding an incredible aura. This guy is stronger than that general of Wano-kuni. Oh, did you cut it? The man said this with a look of surprise in his tone. Yeah. I nodded, my hand still on the hilt. I didn't know if I was encountering an enemy or a potential enemy, but it was always good to be prepared. It's amazing. Man said, hey, you are an amazing swordsman. It's up to you. It is an incredible swordsmanship to be able to cut off the head of such a big sea king with such an easy sword. The man looked very surprised. My name is Jin, I belong to the Beast Pirates. Hey, come to my ship. What? I'm a little surprised. Is this guy recruiting Mr. Sakata? You are very strong. Jin said, it's rare to meet a rare powerhouse like you. It would be a pity if you don't recruit. Ha 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 ha, how's it going? Come to my ship. Sorry. I decisively refused and said, what are you kidding me? Any cat or dog wants Uncle Sakata to follow him. I refuse. Really? The man named Jin clenched his fists. The air suddenly became heavy, and I clenched the handle of the knife. Is this going to hit? Forget it. Jin smiled like this, it's better to go to the boss meeting first and make the most of it. Maybe we will meet again, swordsman. The man smiled like this, turned his head and walked onto the deck. I could still hear him muttering to himself, it shouldn't be far from Wano-kuni, right? The big ship broke through the waves and headed for the distance. Only then did I notice that there was a fleet on the sea in the distance, so this ship came to see the sea kings that I slaughtered. Woo! I couldn't help but let out a slow sigh of relief. The pressure on me from that man was really strong. He was an amazing guy. Are they going to Wano-kuni? I thought so. I should have heard correctly. The target of this fleet is definitely Wano-kuni. Is that the monster's subordinate? Trouble, my homeland. I can already foresee that Wano-kuni, who is about to bleed into a river, will be bloodbathed by all the daimyo who are unwilling to submit to the general. But it has nothing to do with me. Let's go first. If that guy comes back, it's going to be trouble if you stay here. I picked up Mr. Vlad, who still had not regained consciousness, plunged into the sea, and swam toward the unknown distance. The drifting this time did not last long. In the middle of the night, a boat appeared again in my field of vision. A big ship with a bunch of guys who later turned out to be equally incredible. Chapter 327 Woman. It hurts a lot, and there is an amazing pain all over the body, like being run over by a road roller, like being smashed dozens of times on the body with a street sign, and it feels like the whole body is falling apart. Vlad felt himself plunged into endless darkness. Hey. He opened his eyes suddenly. Well, the ceiling I don't know. Vlad said this, as he said, what caught his eye was a very unfamiliar but familiar scene. The wooden ceiling has been seen everywhere. In this era of sails and the sea, such wooden ceilings can be seen on any ship. Therefore, it is naturally a very familiar scene, but what is strange is that this is an unfamiliar ship. Vlad has not been on such a ship that will be constantly bumpy with the waves for a long time. He has long been used to flying. The platinum in the sky. The D-drag is so convenient. Who wants to sail on the sea honestly if it can fly? Ah, it seems to have been treated. So where is this place? Vlad sat up. Vivi frowned. It hurt a lot. The fight with Kaido before was really not easy. Is that guy Kaido really good? If Vlad is strong, he is like a monster. If so, then that guy Kaido is a real monster. Absolutely unmatched by ordinary people, and it is indeed impossible to overwhelm thousands of pirates by being able to ascend to the position of the four emperors. This is the most embarrassing battle since Vlad obtained the dragon fruit, although it seems that the two have fought back and forth, hurting each other, and even Kaido, who has not been able to avoid the defense of Vlad's attack, is injured. It's a little heavier, but it doesn't matter. Kaido's beast-like recovery ability is really not comparable to Vlad, a civilian player. Vlad's broken bones and shattered internal organs are still alive. No recovery. People are really different. Vlad didn't care too much. Whitebeard and the redhead didn't have monsters like Aunt Kaido. Isn't the Constitution also the top powerhouse in the sea? It can only be said that Kaido and Ant have greater advantages, but it does not mean that they are invincible. Vlad is still very young. There is still a lot of room for improvement. Vlad does not care much. Besides, he didn't lose this time against Kaido. Vlad thought as if he was comforting himself, although if he continued to fight, he would definitely lose. If there is no confirmation, then it cannot be determined, just like Schrodinger's cat, Vlad's victory or defeat. Before the final confirmation, no one can say that Vlad will lose. Maybe Kaido will suddenly have a viral heart attack. Hang up. PFF'd. Thinking of this, Vlad suddenly laughed out loud, his shoulders shrugged. I'm so funny. Vlad smiled, his face twitched suddenly, and just a slight movement had caused his wound to burst. Hey, is the injury so serious? Vlad's face twitched, but there was no doubt that the man was still smiling. Duh. Vlad uncovered the quilt covering him, and the clothes were still on his body. It should be said that the pants were not worn by Vlad. With some effort, he put his legs on the ground, and then he looked around. It was a very simple room with no special decoration, a simple bed, a desk, and a chair under the desk. Then there was a small oil lamp on the desk, but it was not lit. Of course, there was still light infiltrating through the cracks in the wooden planks on the ceiling. That's right. Vlad seemed to remember something, reached out and touched the pocket of his trousers, and then put a reassuring smile on his face. He took out a small notebook from the pocket. It has been swollen by the blisters and now it is dry again. The handwriting is very vague, and there are very few recognizable contents. Hey, that's true. Vlad smiled like this. Mr. Kazuki's last relic, it seems that the game is over. Vlad is a little tangled now. This is the secret book of grammatical knowledge that Kazuki Odin left him about the ancient texts of the historical text, which Vlad does not know very well. Now it seems to be finished. This is troublesome. Vlad put the small notebook in his pocket, looking a little troubled. I was beaten in vain, but the purpose was not completed perfectly. It's a loss. It's a loss. Vlad's learning level of ancient characters is not enough. Most of the vocabulary is mastered in general reading and writing. There is no problem, but the grammar part is not enough. Many special usages are easy to literally translate, and sometimes they are very different. Which is annoying. So, is it my delusion? Vlad touched his chin. The text on that road sign seems to be just some incomprehensible text. Or, is that what it takes to get 4 stones? Hey. Vlad's eyes opened with VVS, and he stood up. Quote. Step by step, although it is very slow, it is indeed walking towards the cabin door. Is that guy Sakata also on this ship? Vlad's observation hockey was up and running the first time he woke up, and he knew exactly what was going on the ship. Although it does not seem to mean hostility, it is always right to be prepared. As the saying goes, be prepared. Vlad put his hand on the doorknob. What will the situation be like outside? Vlad's current situation is not good. If he really encounters some difficult enemies, it will not be a good thing. Squeak. Without even a little hesitation, Vlad gently opened the door. There was no one outside the door. Vlad knew this for a long time. His observation hockey would not weaken with the injury. Corridor, this is really not a small boat, the structure of several decks. Vlad walked out of the room and walked slowly and firmly towards the stairs not far away. Although he will meet people from this ship sooner or later, Vlad still likes to take the initiative to contact each other. It's an obsessive-compulsive disorder. He doesn't like being passive. Oh. Vlad looked a little surprised. Quote. Soon, soft footsteps came, and then one foot stepped on the wooden stairs. It was a foot in high heels. It belonged to a woman's foot, and it must belong to a beautiful woman's foot. Soon, the young woman showed her true face in front of Vlad. Vlad guessed right. She was indeed a very beautiful woman with a bright smile and a pair of goggles on her head. Hat of. Hey. Vlad was very interested and surprised. I have met an incredible guy. Mobile phone users, please visit Reading, a better reading experience. Chapter 328 Man. Oh, you're already awake. The very clear voice, with a few surprises, seemed to be genuinely happy about Vlad's awakening. X23 US. Com updates fastest. He has short orange hair, a very friendly smile on his face, wearing a short dress, and his snow-white thighs are exposed. Well. Vlad nodded and replied with a smile, did you save me? That's right. Woman replied, we were taken aback at the time. You can actually encounter such a thing in the waters of the New World. Your partner is super amazing. Oh, is it? Of course Vlad knew who this woman was talking about as his partner, and there would be no one other than Mr. Sakata, the little friend he brought out from Wano-kuni. Vlad was severely injured after fighting with Kaido. This is the second thing. Vlad is not unbearable for such an injury. Although Vlad's constitution is far inferior to Kaido and Charlotte Linlin, it can be compared to the whole world. It is a real monster constitution. Even if a dozen bones are broken, even if the internal organs are broken, it is not unbearable. The reason why Vlad fell from the sky is not the injury, but the physical strength. I have to say that Zhu Rong is too physically exhausting. Whether it is the continuous flame creation and the continuous use of armament hockey, it's a very physically draining thing. Even a monster like Vlad's constitution is a bit unbearable. Vlad and Kaido have reached the point where the fuel is exhausted, and their physical strength has been completely exhausted. Let alone maintaining Zhu Rong, it is impossible to continue flying in a dragon-like state. Falling into a coma, this situation is much more serious than when he fought Golden Lion. Against Golden Lion, it was just a loss of strength, and there were no other problems, but this time it was different. I completely lost consciousness. That guy Kaido is really powerful. There was no other way. Vlad pinned his hope of being rescued on Mr. Sakata. Although he hadn't been in contact for too long, and although he didn't say a few words, Vlad believed that this guy could be trusted. As it turns out, he was right. Yeah, it's really awesome. Woman replied with such a smile, there are no islands around here. He took you to swim in the sea for a long time. It's amazing. Such a will, such a physical strength. That Mr. Sakata is amazing. Really. Vlad looked very happy. I thought for a long time, that guy is very good. By the way, it's really rude to not introduce myself yet. The woman smiled playfully. My name is Carrot, and I'm a businessman. Carrot. Vlad smiled. What a nice name. Really. The woman smiled happily, her eyes narrowed into slits, as quiet and beautiful as the girl next door. You really can talk. Ah ha ha ha. Vlad laughed, because it sounds really good. Carrot is indeed a nice name, but the real name should be Koala, right? Even better, Vlad had heard of this name, but not as a businessman, but as a revolutionary army. Vlad looked at the beautiful girl in front of him and smiled. My name is Vlad, Ferdinand Vlad, thank you so much, Miss Savior. Vlad didn't mean to hide his identity. After all, there was no reason why a woman named Koala couldn't recognize her identity. After all, these people were fighters fighting for freedom hidden in the shadows of the world. Above the four emperors. Ha ha ha, the savior or something, it's too serious. Koala smiled, just call me Kara. That's good. Vlad naturally accepted the other party's opinion, Miss Clark. Miss Clark, where's my buddy? I'll go and say hello to him. Fred asked. Oh, Mr. Sakata. Koala replied, he's on deck. He said he'd never seen the sea on a boat, so he's been on deck for 2 days. Oh, have I been in a coma for so long? Vlad paid more attention to the other information in Koala's words, turning around and walking towards the stairs. Well, we met you the night before yesterday. Mr. Vlad, you were seriously injured. To be honest, I really didn't expect you to wake up so easily. Koala followed Vlad's footsteps and spoke with a look of amazement in her tone. Then, the woman looked hesitant and seemed to be hesitant. That, Mr. Vlad. Well, what's the matter? Vlad asked curiously, Miss Clark. Well, Mr. Vlad, although it is a bit presumptuous, but... This woman looks a little scared. It can be said to be very expressive. Are you the fire dragon Vlad, one of the King Shichibukai? Well, yes, I am. Vlad replied casually. This woman's acting skills can be said to be completely online. She has long known his identity, and she can act as if she knew it for the first time. The appearance of a small businessman frightened by Vlad's reputation. Da. Vlad frowned and walked up the stairs step by step. It was really painful. Really, it's really Shichibukai, Mr. Vlad. Koala consciously stretched out his hand to support Vlad, and Vlad waved his hand to say no, Master Vlad is not so empty yet. However, Mr. Vlad, who is Shichibukai, was injured so badly. What happened? Well, it's not something that can't be said. Vlad Vivi squinted his eyes, and the sudden strong light made him a little uncomfortable. Fight with a monster and got beaten up. Can you beat Mr. Vlad? Could it be? Could it be? Koala looks a little unbelievable. This time it should be a true performance, because this is really big news. Well, it's a monster called Kaido. Vlad looked annoyed. It can't be strong. Da. At the same time, Vlad finally stepped on the deck. There were many sailors on the deck, and they were very busy. Vlad could notice that although they looked like ordinary sailors, in fact, they were all a very elite soldier. His aura is completely different from that of ordinary sailors. Have you woken up yet? A man came over from the side. Hello. The man is very polite. Oh tilde. Vlad smiled meaningfully. He also knew this man. Chapter 329 Big Shot. Hello. Vlad smiled like this. Thank you so much. Without you, I might have to die in this sea. Nothing. The man smiled, with a very hearty smile, inexplicably full of affinity and moving appeal. He is an amazing guy. Such a guy will be the most powerful guy in the sea. No matter how strong the individual is, he is alone. There is no way to create a name. This is also true for Hawkeye. Even if he has the top combat power in the sea, he is not regarded as an enemy by the marine government of the Four Emperors. After all, his personal ability is limited. Yes, even Hawkeye is only valued by others, that's all. The strength of the group is the most powerful force in the sea. The Four Emperors themselves and the terrifying combat power of their subordinates are the strongest pirate group in the world. Similarly, why can Marine dominate the sea? Sovereign authority over all the seas of the world except the New World. Naturally, because they are not only the world's strongest top-level combat power groups, but also countless grassroots Marine soldiers. Vlad agreed that a guy like the man standing in front of him now is the most terrifying guy in the sea, and the guy who can subtly and unconsciously unite by his side is the most terrifying guy. Guys, you can refer to Roger, Whitebeard and the future Straw Hat. Although the sea gives birth to everything, more often the sea is not friendly to those of us who gallop on the sea. Man said, I will help you when you are in trouble because I also want someone to come back and help me when I am in trouble. Yes, that's right. Vlad said so. He smiled and looked very meaningful, but I can't forget this kindness. After all, it saved my life. Sir, I will repay you. Introduction. Koala on the side stepped forward and walked to the man's side, smiled and said, This gentleman is the captain of our ship's escort, Mr. Jack. Oh, it's Mr. Jack. Vlad smiled and looked at the man in front of him. He was dressed like a gentleman. It was completely different from Vlad's bold and unrestrained dress. He was covered with a black coat, and inside was a very regular aristocratic costume. Wearing a top hat with a goggles, I don't know if Koala's hat is a couple hat. With short golden wavy hair and a scar on the left eye, he looks very handsome and looks like a man who is a little smaller than Vlad. Of course, Vlad knew him too. Of course, it was like Koala. Vlad didn't know this guy named Jack either. I don't know why. Vlad has met many names along the way. The guy named Jack, why is this name so common in this world? However, these Jacks will never rap the guy in front of him. The reason is, of course, this man is not called Jack. His name is Sabo, the S in ASL. There is no doubt that, like Koala, this guy is also the members of the Revolutionary Army, although I don't know if they have become the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, but it is certain that this guy must have been the top of the Revolutionary Army. As we all know, even the government of the 4 emperors in the New World is only a little bit afraid and not very afraid. Although the 4 emperors' pirates are strong, as long as the 4 emperors themselves die, there is no threat. The 4 emperors are also human beings. Is also unable to live forever. For the government that has ruled the world for 800 years, the 4 emperors are nothing but a powerful pirate group that has appeared in the past, and they are not very afraid. However, the Revolutionary Army is different. The Revolutionary Army that upholds justice and fights for freedom is different from the very beginning. The goals of these guys are completely different from the 4 emperors. King of Pirates, the more powerful ones want to conquer the world, although the threat is great, but if the fundamental government takes action, the equally rebellious pirates will spontaneously solve them, so the Revolutionary Army is different. The Revolutionary Army has aimed at the government itself from the very beginning, which has not been seen in hundreds of years. Only this matter is absolutely unbearable for the government, and free ideas must not spread in the world. I have to say that the era of big pirates has really brought unprecedented challenges to the government. It is also unable to suppress this sea, and the unstoppable and free transmission of the idea of chasing dreams has spawned the awakening of organizations like the Revolutionary Army. Of course, Vlad knew that the era of unstoppable change was coming. In other words, this guy in front of him will become one of the leaders who overthrow the government in the future. A real big man. Jack, this gentleman is amazing. Koala smiled. Really? Obviously, this guy Sabo is also a movie king, and he looks ignorant. This one is, one of the Shichibukai under the king, the great pirate whose reputation is resounding in the sea, Mr. Vlad the Fire Dragon. Koala said loudly. Shichibukai, Fire Dragon. Sabo said in amazement, it's actually Shichibukai, it's amazing. No way. Vlad smiled, Mr. Jack is also terribly strong. Sabo was stunned for a moment, then laughed out loud, ha 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 ha, isn't it? Yes. Vlad smiled back, then he turned to Koala and said, Miss Clara, I'm going to see my buddy, okay? No problem, please do it yourself. Koala smiled sweetly. That's good. Vlad moved towards the stern position step by step. His observation hockey had already found the position of Sakata. By the way, Mr. Jack, I will definitely repay you. You'll be crying and thanking me then. Vlad left with such a smile. Ah, ha. Sabo was a little embarrassed by Vlad's words, which were not friendly at all. Miss Clark, let's discuss the next voyage. Sabo said suddenly. Okay, Mr. Jack. Koala readily accepts. Dash 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 dash. Oh tilde Mr. Sakata, long time no see. Vlad walked to the stern step by step, and the surrounding sailors did not mean to stop him. Soon, a samurai sitting on the stern railing with a fishing rod in his hand caught his eye. What long time no see? Mr. Sakata doesn't remember this, didn't he just see it? I still feed you your lunch. Yeah. Sakata nodded, very much in line with his character setting. I won't say thank you. Vlad sat on the deck with some difficulty, leaning against the railing. Yeah. Dash 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 dash. Blue 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 blue. Quote. Click. The call was answered. Hello, Sabo. Hey, it's me, Mr. Dragon. That man, the fire dragon, has woken up. Really? I'm almost there. The real big man is coming. Chapter 330, The Most Vicious Man in the World. What are you going to do next? Shown on him, he put his hands behind his head and closed his eyes, looking very relaxed. The pain in his cock had been completely ignored by him. Mr. Sakata, what are you going to do next? Vlad said to himself, the purpose of my coming to the new world has been completed. Although it is not perfect, it is almost there. I plan to go back to the first half to meet my friends. What about you? What are your plans next? Quote. The old god Sakata was sitting on the railing, holding a fishing rod in his hand, and watching the floating on the water in the distance with the boats going. To be honest, it's not easy to catch something when fishing like this. What is his plan? To be honest, Sakata has no idea at all. After all, it is the first time he has walked out of Wano-kuni. Revenge is certain, but what should be done before that? Adventure at sea, never had such an experience. What? Don't you have a plan of your own? Vlad didn't mean to wait for Sakata's answer at all. He still knew this man quite well. He didn't have to guess at all. He must have no plans of his own. This is also nonsense. People are bombed and forced to embark on an adventurous journey. It will also be very confusing. If you can find a way, there will be ghosts. Then, Mr. Sakata, I will sincerely invite you again. Vlad said in a very serious tone, come onto my ship. Ah. Sakata stood up as if he had been electrocuted and looked at Vlad. Reason. Sakata finally said, what's the reason? Simple reason. Vlad opened his eyes and looked at Sakata. It has nothing to do with anything else, just because, if you get on my boat, I think I will let you see the most wonderful sea. On my boat, without a doubt, will give you the most exciting adventure in the world. This kind of voyage is what you've been looking forward to. Again. Vlad said casually, that guy Kaido, I won't forget the gift he gave me today so easily. I will pay him back, and then the general will be handed over to you. I don't have a qualified sword. I'm a little helpless too. Is it? Sakata looked a little hesitant. Yes. Vlad nodded. Really? Vlad smiled. Really? If you lie to me. Sakata turned his head and started fishing again. I'll kill you. There would be no such premise. Vlad smiled. I'm one of those guys who won't let everyone who believes in me down. Humph. Sakata snorted coldly, but Vlad could see that there was indeed a smile on the corner of his mouth. Vlad never considered the situation that Sakata would refuse his invitation from the very beginning. From the beginning, Sakata wanted to go with Vlad very much, and Vlad did not notice it. Please take care of me, Mr. Sakata. Vlad closed his eyes with a smile. Although he just woke up, he should take a good nap when he encounters such a happy event. Dash 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 dash. Hey, it tastes so good. Under the flickering light, Vlad used both hands and kept stuffing things into his mouth from the plate on the table. He was really hungry. Although Sakata was feeding him food when he was in a coma for the past 2 days, he was able to feed him. That is, liquid food such as porridge and milk, which has no effect at all. People who should be hungry have to be hungry. In addition, Vlad is now a wounded person. Of course, he will not be polite if he continues to replenish energy. Your cook can do it. Juice splashed all over the dining table, and the few people except Vlad had no appetite to eat at all, so they watched Vlad eat alone. Well, what's wrong? Vlad's mouth was bulging, and he said in surprise, but at the same time his hand was still in the cycle of taking food, stuffing it into his mouth, taking food. Aren't you going to eat? Ha 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 ha. Sabo looked a little embarrassed and touched his head. Mr. Vlad is so bold. In addition to Vlad on the table are his new companions, the samurai Sakata, 2 of the Revolutionary Army, Sabo and Koala. Sabo watched Vlad eat suddenly in a trance. Mr. Jack, what's the matter? Koala said with concern, your expression is not right. No, nothing. The corner of Sabo's mouth subconsciously put on a warm smile, it's just that I suddenly like Mr. Vlad's bold way of eating. Oh, Jack-kun. Koala smiled with interest, would you like to try it too? Sabo looked at Vlad's greasy hands and looked a little tangled. Although he lost his memory of the past, there is no doubt that this man was a nobleman in the past, and his manners were very elegant. Vlad eats like that. By the way, Mr. Jack. Vlad tried to swallow a mouthful of meat and said casually, there are so many things, it's a bit of a waste. Okay, Mr. Vlad. Koala laughed, let's start eating too. Last sentence is what Koala said to Sabo and Sakata. Well. Sabo was about to respond. No, Miss Clara. Vlad took another big bone from the plate on the table and said softly, I mean, there are still a lot of things, so. Let the gentleman outside come in and eat too. Quote. Sabo's words caught in his throat. Quote. Koala's expression froze. Crack. Sakata gently pushed the saber around his waist, Kikuichiman out of the scabbard. Calm down, Sakata. Vlad smiled and took a bite of the meat, not the enemy. Squeak. The door of the cabin was pushed open, and with the strong wind, a man full of haki appeared. A man in a green cloak walked in. Famous for a long time. Fire Dragon. The man said this, his voice was low and powerful, as if full of power to shake the world, Vlad. Oh. Vlad wiped his mouth with oily hands, smiled, and replied, this is the most dangerous man in the world, the most vicious criminal. Mr. Long. Chapter 331 Dragon to Dragon. The man who came in was not too tall, at least he was short compared to Vlad. In the dim light, the expression on the face shrouded under the hood could not be seen clearly, all Vlad could see was his face. Mouth, the corner of the mouth with a smile, it was a very confident, very haki smile. Wow. What was exposed was a face that was not handsome, with red tattoos on the left face, which looked a little strange. The man's first influence on Vlad was Haki, the incomparable Haki. This man, just like his name, a real dragon hovering above the sky, full of indescribable Haki. This man, the monster, no, it is definitely a powerful and boundless monster. This is the worst criminal in the world. Vlad didn't mean to stand up and smiled, Mr. Long. Crack. Sakata gently pressed the knife back to the scabbard. It seems that it should not be able to fight now. Moreover, even if it does fight, it is useless. Sakata is very sure of this, although he has always been very concerned about his combat power. Confident, however, the guy who came in now is obviously not something he can compete with. Although he didn't exude any great aura, it was not difficult to see. As long as he was a first-class expert, he could easily see the gap between them. Although he did not show hostility, Sakata was convinced that the man who came in is definitely a super strong that he can't compete with, plus the guy named Jack on the side. If he really starts to fight, he will only have his own fighting power, and he has no power to fight back. It's better to have something to eat with a tone of unnecessary resistance, Sakata thought. Mr. Long. Sabo stood up and greeted Long respectfully. For Sabo, the man Long was not just a savior, but more importantly, he was also Sabo's leader. He led Sabo to pursue freedom. The road, he let Sabo find a career that is enough to fight for a lifetime. Sabo respected this man very much, and respected this man who worked so hard to overthrow the government and bring freedom to this sea. Mr. Long. Also standing up to say hello is Miss Koala. This woman is also the backbone of the Revolutionary Army. She was rescued by the Sun Pirates in the past and connected Fish Man with humans. She also brought heavy suffering to her. The government that killed her savior Tiger was full of resentment. Good work, Sabo, Koala. Long said that, then pulled out the chair and sat opposite Vlad. First time, Mr. Vlad. The dragon's tone was very sincere, I've been famous for you for a long time. Oh, it's called Sabo and Koala. Vlad leaned on the back of the chair and smiled leisurely. Really, you actually lied to me with a fake name. I beg your pardon, Mr. Vlad. Sabo smiled, because our identities cannot be exposed, so please understand. Understand. Vlad smiled like this. Revolutionary Army. The government kills a lot of guys who don't think it kills too much. It's natural to hide your identity. That's why, Vlad's eyes looked at the man sitting opposite him. The code name was Dragon. His name was also Dragon. His full name was Monkey D. Dragon, the man who inherited D.'s will. Marine legend Vice Admiral, Marine hero Garp the son of Fist, the father of Straw Hat Luffy, is considered to be the only man in the world who can directly overthrow the world government, a real man who can shake the world. Mr. Long, the current situation is that you are not afraid. Vlad said, is it really good to expose my identity like this? I'm Shichibukai, what do you say? I'm also a legal pirate under the government. No matter how you look at it, I'm your enemy. It's definitely not a good thing to reveal your identity in front of me like this. Aren't you afraid, Mr. Long? Vlad smiled and picked up a glass of wine. If I tell the government this news, you will be in trouble too. Then, Mr. Vlad, will you? Long said so, with a smile on his face, a calm and confident smile. Oh. Vlad took a sip of wine and smiled. How do you say it? What did Mr. Vlad go to sea for? Long asked in a very calm tone, without the slightest bit of condescension that a person in a high position should have. Do you want me to tell my dream so suddenly? Vlad looked a little surprised. Well, but it's not a secret that can't be told. Of course, I only have one goal when I go to sea. I'm going to be the freest man in the sea. That is, I'm going to be One Piece King of Pirates. Hey. Sabo suddenly looked dazed and touched his forehead, as if he was very uncomfortable. One Piece King of Pirates. What's the matter? Sabo suddenly felt his eyes puckered. Sabo-kun. Koala supported Sabo with some worry. What's wrong? No, nothing. Sabo smiled and said he was fine. By the way, that's the reason. Long said, Mr. Vlad, that's why I came to you. What? Vlad looked a little surprised. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you what my goal is. The dragon put his hands around his chest, his face full of seriousness. Well, of course. Vlad smiled. The purpose of the Revolutionary Army, who else in this sea doesn't know? My lifelong wish is to overthrow this rotten government. Long said, but I have to admit that the strength of the government is completely beyond our Revolutionary Army's ability to confront head-on, and all we can do is to constantly harass the government's rear, and work hard to mobilize the masses and continuously strengthen our power. Strength. But, to be honest, if things go on like this, it's still a long way from the tomorrow I expect, and there's no end in sight at all. So, I think. Long's eyes slammed, and he said, there is only one way to overthrow the government, and that is to unite all forces that can be united. You say, what? Vlad suddenly looked surprised, and his eyes suddenly lit up. I think. Long smiled. Mr. Vlad is also a force that can be fought for. How do you see it? Vlad smiled. The final island records all the things that the government does not want to reveal, with all the secrets that have been hidden for 100 years in the void. Long said, if Mr. Vlad wants to be the undisputed One Piece King of Pirates, Laugh Tale must go. Exactly, this kind of behavior is absolutely not allowed by the government. Plus. Hey. Vlad smiled, it's an irrefutable reason. Chapter 332 Red Dragon Red Heart. The reason of the dragon made Vlad not have the slightest idea of rejection. For Vlad, it was really an irresistible temptation. Just like what Long said, the revolutionary army he led could never overthrow the government on its own. To fight against them is to fight against the whole world, which is much more exciting than fighting against the 4 emperors. No one knows what the government that has ruled the world for 800 years has accumulated behind the scenes. Marine is the most reliant and the strongest force in the government, but who knows what kind of backup the government has after Marine? No one knows such a thing. Vlad's goal is One Piece, King of Pirates, the truth of the world, the freest man in the world, and it just so happens that this kind of behavior is something the government will never allow. Guys like Gall D. Roger have one has already caused the government to suffer. If there is another One Piece, King of Pirates, then the government may really suffer the biggest test in 800 years. Just like what the dragon said, in the final island, Laugh Tale hides a secret that the government is never willing to reveal. There is no doubt that this is a secret that can shake the government's rule. Maybe it is the truth of history, maybe it is, whatever the legacy of that huge kingdom 800 years ago, the government will never allow anyone to come to that place again. Vlad and the government have the most fundamental conflict. Although Vlad is now nominally a Shichibukai under the government, he and the government cannot coexist, and conflict is only a matter of time. Just like a dragon, Vlad also believes that it is not easy to defeat the government. It is absolutely impossible for him to do it alone. The strongest Whitebeard pirates in the Blue Sea are all defeated by Marine under the government. The fight was fragmented, and Vlad's strength was still far behind. Just like what the dragon did, Vlad also believed that in order to win the final victory, we must unite all the forces that can be united. Fighting alone is the stupidest act. Of course, the more cards in the hand, the better. Well, as the saying goes, it is better to be prepared, instead of taking a desperate risk. Isn't it better to wait for a wave of flat pushes after the violent soldiers are enough? Long believes that Vlad is a force that can be drawn, and Vlad also believes that the Revolutionary Army is also a powerful force that can be united. The fundamental purposes of the two do not conflict. The enemy is the same, and the enemy of the enemy is himself. Friends, which has provided the basis for cooperation between the two. How strong is the Revolutionary Army? Vlad is not very clear, but, to make the government as a serious concern, in addition to the freedom of thought they can widely spread, their own combat power is also not to be underestimated. At least, every corner of the world has their branches. At least, the strength of the Commander Long is definitely not under the Four Emperors Admiral. Vlad speculates that the Revolutionary Army may have a combat power that can surpass a Four Emperor pirates. It is definitely a force that cannot be underestimated that can shake the world. Vlad has been preparing, he is constantly accumulating strength, he wants to become One Piece, King of Pirates, then the world government is the biggest enemy standing in his way. Although it is not necessary to fight to the death with the government, it is always good to be prepared, and to rely on the illusory luck for your future. No matter how you look at it, it is safer to have the power to deal with all threats. Besides, if it is like Roger sneaking into Laugh Tale, it is not too boring to become One Piece, King of Pirates. It can be said that Vlad is not more about becoming One Piece, King of Pirates. Prepare, he is. Get ready for a huge war the world has never seen before. The Revolutionary Army, in Vlad's vision, is also an indispensable fighting force in this war. Therefore, Vlad and Long can be said to be like-minded and like-minded. Vlad never thought of becoming the closest partner with the Revolutionary Army. This is unrealistic. Just getting on the line is enough, not asking for help in the snow, but for the icing on the cake. After all, many friends have many paths. Mr. Long. The morning light has gradually penetrated into the room, but the two men in the room are still chatting enthusiastically. So, it is absolutely necessary to have a firm revolutionary program, and what kind of force is the greatest? Vlad sprayed saliva wantonly in the innermost, pointed at the country, and excited the words, "It's a thought." What is the government most afraid of? Is it the Four Emperors who will dominate the New World? No, although the Four Emperors are strong, the government may not take it seriously. Is it a pirate? Is it the era? Is it? Although the era of the great pirates brought huge troubles to the government, the pirates have not shaken the foundation of the Taoist government. Is it your Revolutionary Army? This may be the closest answer. Yes and no. Vlad said, is the Revolutionary Army strong? Mr. Long, I think you know this the most. That's right. Long, who was sitting opposite Vlad, nodded approvingly, although I'm a little dejected when I say this. In fact, the strength of the Revolutionary Army is far from the government's. So, what is the government afraid of? It's the free will represented by the Revolutionary Army. Vlad smiled. Mr. Long knows this best. Long nodded in agreement. Yes, this is what the government is most afraid of. If the people desire only and learn to resist, then the basis for their rule will naturally not exist. Even if the government has a deep foundation, if the people no longer support them, they will only be thrown into the dust. Long said, "That's right, that's what we do." "But no, Mr. Long," Vlad said, "your organization can't do this." "What?" The dragon looked surprised. "It's not good for you to simply spread ideas like this." Vlad said so. "Want to hear about it?" Long didn't seem to care. This man was like a saint. As long as it was for his own dreams, he could offer everything. If Vlad really had good advice, of course he wouldn't care. "As I said, what you lack is a revolutionary program." Vlad said, "The revolutionary cause is not playing games, it is not angering the government, it is a real life and death confrontation. Either the government will be swept into the trash, or the government will kill it. There are only these two outcomes. So, Mr. Long, your consciousness is not enough. Your mission is not to let the people learn to be free, or to start a revolution without fear. Your purpose should not be to unite the people, unite the power of the people, overthrow the government, and establish anew the world." Quote. The dragon looked a little confused, and didn't think that what he did was different from what Vlad said. "You have to understand, Mr. Long, your purpose is too simple, so you can't make the people believe in you." Vlad smiled. "A clear revolutionary program is absolutely indispensable to you. You have to let the people know that you are different from the government, and the difference is not that you hold free ideas, but you truly are able to bring a better tomorrow to the exploited people. As for your future plans, you are really a bit empty. A simple slogan of freedom cannot infect people. The people are pragmatic, and the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army are also pragmatic. You have to let them know and follow you. We'll arrive at a better tomorrow." The dragon's eyes lit up. "It's just the first step, it's just the beginning." Vlad took a sip of water, and his mouth was dry. "Mr. Vlad." Long looked at Vlad with a burning look in his eyes. "Woo ha ha, Mr. Long. I have a red X book to ensure the success of the revolution." Chapter 333 Return Home. It's near here. On the bow of the big ship, there was a dragon with a regretful smile on his face. It had been a week since Vlad met the dragon for the first time, and now, Vlad was about to leave. "Mr. Vlad, according to the information sent by my intelligence officers, the place you want to go is near here." Oh. Woo-ha-ha, thank you so much, Mr. Long." Vlad and Long were standing together. After a week, he was in a coma. It has been about 10 days since he fought with Kobo. Vlad's injury is completely fine, although it is far away. It's not as good as a genuine monster-level resilience like Kobo, but it's definitely a non-human level of resilience, no doubt. A man named Sakata stood beside Vlad, wearing a dark blue t-shirt, a pair of fancy beach shorts, a pair of flip-flops, and 2 knives hanging from his left waist, black. His medium-length hair was tied into a ponytail, and he looked like a Wano-kuni samurai at all. If I had to find it myself, it would be quite a hassle. Vlad smiled. "The last time I came here, I had a lot of trouble." "Really?" Long smiled. "It's hard to imagine something that could trouble Mr. Vlad." "Ah, ha 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 ha." Vlad smiled a little embarrassedly. This week Vlad thought hard and wrote a lot of the theoretical essence of the previous life's big bosses. Fortunately, in the previous life, he had studied thinking X Mao X well, plus Vlad Germany's life experience in this world for more than 20 years can be said to be very adaptable to local conditions. Suddenly, Long, who was in the initial stage of the revolution, was stunned for a while, and he was shocked by Vlad, and he was about to join Vlad. It can be said that although Long has not yet reached the point of trusting Vlad, but at least he regards Vlad as a comrade who shares the same goal but is walking on a different path. Is it really going so soon? Mr. Vlad. Long looked a little hesitant. It was unimaginable that such a man would have such an appearance. There's no way, Mr. Long. Vlad looked straight into the dragon's eyes and said, the times are calling me. This sea is waiting for me to make waves. Ha 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 ha. Long laughed suddenly, as if amused by his own thoughts. Yes, Mr. Vlad, for people like us, on the voyage of chasing dreams, it seems true there is no time to rest. Of course it must be. Vlad smiled, and his body began to rise sharply, his broad wings stretched out. Crackling. Vlad twisted his body, and the bones of his body made a crackling sound. Oh, it feels like I haven't exercised for a long time, and my body is rusting. So, go, Samurai Sakata. Vlad beckoned to his new friend. Sakata came over knowingly. Vlad grabbed Sakata directly in his hand. There was no way, he was tall and capricious. Okay. Woo. The wind suddenly rose, and Vlad flapped his wings and took Sakata into the sky. Goodbye then, Mr. Long. Okay, goodbye. Long smiled and waved, and said, my friend. Ooh. In a series of loud laughter, the fiery red dragon man rose into the sky and quickly disappeared into the sky. The dragon stood on the bow, looking at the sky where Vlad disappeared, wondering what he was thinking. Mr. Long. Sabo, who was on the side, walked behind the dragon and spoke softly. What an amazing person. Long smiled. I'm very strange. Sabo said with some doubts, Mr. Long, why are you exposing yourself in front of Mr. Vlad? Exposing the identity of our revolutionary army. After all, no matter what, he's also Shichibukai. Why? Long turned his head and looked at his successor who was very satisfied. Mr. Sabo, just because I have a guess. Guess? Sabo frowned. What kind of guesswork? Do you remember what happened more than 2 years ago? Long said, remember, Sabo-kun. Could it be? Sabo's eyes gradually widened, looking a little surprised. You mean? Well, what happened in Mariajoy more than 2 years ago? Long opened his mouth with some seriousness. His eyes were deep, and he seemed to have seen the flames that Mariajoy shot into the sky that night more than 2 years ago. I suspect. You suspect that the arsonist that night was Mr. Vlad? Sabo answered. Well. Long Vivi nodded. Both time and ability are somewhat consistent. Mr. Vlad's suspicion is very high. Really? Sabo understood a little. At that time, Long was very excited when he heard the news. After all, Tenryubito is the most sinful race in this world, and the root of all evil. That is the ultimate goal of the Revolutionary Army. Well, I just didn't think of it. Long didn't say that Vlad was the arsonist, and Sabo didn't ask. Mr. Vlad is so amazing. Ha ha ha, to be honest, I didn't expect a Shichibukai like Mr. Vlad at all. Sabo smiled. How can we have such a common language with us? Yes, of course, after all, Ferdinando, how nostalgic. Long also smiled. Mr. Vlad, although he doesn't want to be with us, there is no doubt about it. He has the freest mind in the world. He will not be our enemy. Nothing in the world can restrain him. Long suddenly looked worried again. It's just, such freedom. Really? Forget it. Long smiled, took out a small book from his pocket. Let's go back. The most important work is about to begin. The big ship drifted away, and the most important force in the world began to surge. Dash 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 dash. Well, I didn't expect to get on the line with the Revolutionary Army so easily. Above the sky, Vlad smiled and looked very proud. This is better than pulling a group of 4 emperors to be an ally. Can it be trusted? Sakata asked. Trust? Well. Vlad pondered, before they accomplish their goals, they can be trusted. Besides, we rely on ourselves, the Revolutionary Army, just, the alliance. Got it. Sakata nodded. He is not very good at using his brain, just like listening to the teacher in the past. He can just follow Vlad now. This is his own choice. Woo, it's finally here. Vlad smiled. How? Must have never seen it before. Such an amazing thing. That's it. Sakata looked very surprised. Is it Elephant Island, Sao? Yes. Vlad showed a smug smile. It's here. There is a very strong force waiting for us to collect it. Chapter 334 Rattling Swords. What appeared in front of Vlad and Sakata was no other place. It was the place Vlad visited not long ago, a place called Zo. The giant elephant, whose back is already high into the sky, is still walking on the sea like not long ago, just like the past few hundred years, walking aimlessly on this sea. Quote. Sakata's eyes were wide open. He had never seen such an amazing sight. In terms of size, the Sea King was amazing enough, but even the largest Sea King that Sakata had ever seen was in front of the elephant. It is also like a milk doll. Just kidding, it is the size of a medium-sized island, and there is a country on its back. Such a body shape can be called terrifying. It can be said that such a huge existence has already been regarded as an existence that has broken through the worldview for Sakata. Of course, this is also considered an ignorance of Sakata. Vlad knew that although the size of the elephant is really good in this world, it is arrogant, but it is not impossible to compare with him. On the bottom of the sea, on Fishman Island, the giant sea kings that the mermaid princess Shirahoshi can call are also comparable in size. After all, that is the king of the sea that can only be called by the Sea King Poseidon, one of the three ancient weapons. Speaking of which, Mermaid Island must also be visited. Vlad thought so. The Fur clan is here. Vlad smiled. What do you think? Fur tribe, Sakata murmured. Of course he knows this race. The Fur tribe has been the retainer of the Kazuki tribe since ancient times. Although the two are separated by a distant sea, they are actually one. Although Sakata has never been to this place, but it's actually quite clear. After all, Kazuki Odin is reluctant to tell Sakata about his adventure at sea, but he's still willing to introduce him to his partner. It's here. Vlad smiled like this. It's impossible to take revenge without continuing to expand our power. Kaido is not a simple opponent. His own power is already amazing. What's more troublesome is that his subordinates still have others. A group of equally troublesome subordinates. So, we have to make us stronger too. Vlad said so. The Fur tribe is the force we can all unite. Yeah. Sakata nodded. Vlad smiled, his wings vibrated, and he flew towards the Elephant Island. This time he didn't mean to hide his figure at all. This round was completely different from the last time he acted like a thief. For once he had a legitimate purpose. Vlad's purpose in coming to Elephant Island this time is very simple. It is for the fighting nation on this island, the Fur tribe. As I said before, the Fur tribes who have lived on the island for generations have extremely strong power. The top-level strength is not weak, and at the same time has a very strong individual soldier quality. Every adult Fur tribe is a qualified soldier. As a subordinate army, it is really a very reliable guy. It is because they are strong and reliable, so Vlad wants to include this group of guys. After all, the more cards in the hand, the stronger the power in the hand, the better for Vlad himself. No one will despise their own strength. Therefore, Vlad is very confident about including such a group of guys. After all, the Fur family has been the retainer of the Kazuki family since ancient times, and has always been the closest friend of the Kazuki family. However, now, the Kazuki family has been uprooted by Kaido and the general, and there is nothing left. In the original story, there is still a Momonosuke and a few retainers, but now after Vlad's mixing, the Kazuki family is in Wano-kuni really has nothing left. So, who can carry on the legacy of the Kazuki family now? Of course, Sakata, who is a disciple of Kazuki Odin, and Uncle Vlad, who can also be regarded as a disciple of Kazuki Odin. It can be said that Vlad is now barely the orthodox heir of the Kazuki family. So _. The fiery red figure rose into the sky and flew straight towards Zoe, who was hidden in the mist. As the height climbed, the shocking look in Sakata's eyes became heavier and heavier. Although it looked shocking from a distance, it would only become more and more terrifying when it was really close to the giant elephant. The thick brush. In front of him, the light suddenly opened up. Above the clouds and mist, behind the giant elephant, a dense forest was revealed. This is it, Zoe. Sakata's eyes widened in a daze. People who have never ventured into the sea in person would never understand such a feeling. Such an unprecedented, rare, and otherworldly scene is only a sight to behold. Only the brave men on the sea can see it. Vlad regained his human form, and did not fly over directly like the last time, but gently landed outside the forest. After all, this time, he was not here as a thief. As a guest, he was still honest. Good to walk in. Let's go, Sakata, go meet our future comrades in arms. Vlad smiled and walked into the dense forest first, and Sakata followed without a word. The forest is very lush, just like the forest on Sha Island. It is hot and humid, the dense canopy blocks the sky, and only occasionally the sun shines through the leaves into the jungle. It's not that there are small animals flashing through the gaps between the trees, not afraid of life at all, not afraid of Vlad and Sakata walking in the jungle, and even a little squirrel jumped on Vlad's shoulders and rubbed it. Vlad's face, Vlad didn't care either. As time passed, Vlad and Sakata gradually went deeper into the forest. Well, Vlad Vivi Isho, it's finally here. Whoosh! A dark shadow suddenly flashed out of the dense trees, and rushed towards Vlad like lightning. Hey! The air was torn apart, and it was like several slashes of knife light that rudely attacked Vlad's head. Oh, it's no joke about being inhospitable. Vlad twisted his body slightly and easily avoided the shadow's blow. Squeak! The sharp claws swept past the little squirrel's body. The little thing was startled and flew out with the pine nuts in its hands. Hey, I scared the kids. Vlad stretched out his hand and lightly took the shadow in his hand. Is a rabbit. Gallet. Accompanied by such a shout, another black shadow jumped out of the jungle. Crack! With a flash of light, a long sword slashed towards Vlad. Vlad didn't care, since he already has a swordsman partner. As usual, all enemies who use swords should be dealt with by him. Ding! Some sharp explosions sounded, and Sakata, who was following behind Vlad, blocked him like a breeze. He pulled out half of the chrysanthemum hanging on his waist with his backhand, and lightly blocked the dark shadow. Hit! The strong force directly bounced the shadow out. Hey! Sakata's eyes suddenly widened, and the appearance of the shadow had already been imprinted into his eyes. Good, so cute. Hey, idiot! Vlad looked at his little friend in a daze, and said weakly. What are you blushing, isn't that a dog? Chapter 335 Dog x Rabbit. Appearing in front of Sakata was a female fur tribe, who seemed to be a canine fur tribe, tall and fit, covered with brown hair, carrying a long sword in his hand, covered with a cloak, and furred. Brown medium-length curly hair of similar color, soft ears hanging down from the sides of the head, wearing a simple vest on the upper body, and a pair of ultra shorts on the lower body. X23 US. Com updates fastest. The canine-like mouth grinned, revealing sharp canine teeth, and his eyes stared at the blushing Sakata standing in front of her, just like a real angry dog. Damn intruder, let me loose, Garrett. With such a roar, this puppy turned into a mass of afterimages, and the speed was astonishing, and it rushed directly towards Sakata. Interesting, is this the fur tribe? Sakata pulled out the chrysanthemum character on his waist, with a rare interesting smile on his face. It really is a really magical race. The speed of this dog fur race is naturally only visible to ordinary people. A little shadow, but for a swordsman of Sakata's level, this speed is really a turtle speed. He was also able to carefully look at the female fur tribe who rushed over with great interest. It was indeed a completely different life from humans. It was as if the bodies of other animals were merged on the basis of humans. It was very peculiar. This is... Hey. Oh no. There was a look of horror on Sakata's face. Ding. There is no suspense. The attack of the female fur tribe was easily blocked by Sakata. Just like the previous situation repeating itself, the dog fur tribe was easily repelled by Sakata, and he couldn't even shake Sakata a little bit. Only. Sakata's face was dripping with blood. The smell of faint rust spread in the air. Vlad widened his eyes in astonishment. He really couldn't accept such a result. Who is Sakata? After all, he brought it out from Wanokuni, a top swordsman who was able to fight evenly with the generals of that country. How could he bleed so easily? No way. What is this doing? Vlad muttered to himself, then yelled at Sakata, "What are you doing? Why do you have a nosebleed on a dog?" It can be regarded as a scene of ruining the three views. The man named Sakata looked at the dog with obvious fur on the opposite side and there was blood flowing from the nostrils. Fuck it. Why would you get a nosebleed on a dog? It's so weird no matter how you think about it. Gudong. With blood flowing from his nostrils, Sakata involuntarily took 2 steps back, and it was very disrespectful, showing no sign of what a samurai should have, with a very surprised expression on his face. How is this going? Sakata's head turned to one side, but his eyes unconsciously glanced at the dog on the opposite side. In such an evil attire, do all the women at sea dress like this? Sakata looked at the other party's high-raised chest tightly wrapped in a tight-fitting vest, and slender thighs under his shorts. He was a little overwhelmed. As we all know, Wanokuni is close to the country, and what is isolated is not only advanced overseas technology and foreign countries' concepts, as well as customs. Sakata has never seen such a bold costume. Although he is a good at peeping at women's bathhouses, Kwanguo is completely different from such a seductive costume. Ah, that's enough. Vlad pinched his forehead, looking very speechless. It seems that it is necessary to take this guy to the happy street to have fun, which is really disappointing. Let me go, asshole. Crackling. The bright lightning flashed, and Vlad's arm suddenly went numb. Wow, the rabbit has bitten. With a slight flick, the rabbit that was carried by Vlad was thrown out directly. This rabbit had amazing agility, turned over in the air, and landed gently beside the dog. Are you all right, Garrett? The dog asked nervously. Well, it's all right. The rabbit named Garrett smiled very silly and sweet. He also wore a short cloak and a short dress, but when he had no other clothes, he had a sharp claws on his right hand. Claws. White fur also covers the whole body. The 2 ears on the top of the head look soft, and the short blonde hair below, especially the big fluffy tail on the back of her hips. How about you, Wanda? Are you all right? I'm fine too. The dog named Wanda shook his head. Although the strength gap was huge, Sakata really didn't hurt her much. Okay, the two of you, let's talk about the past here. Vlad gently threw the little squirrel lying on his shoulders on the tree canopy aside. The little animal was extremely frightened, and ran there without knowing it. We are here for a very important matter. Intruder. The dog named Wanda turned his head vigilantly, stared at Vlad, subconsciously keeping his partner behind him. What's your purpose? Even people who don't have long eyes can see that the strength of these two sudden intruders should not be underestimated. It was like floating on the sea alone with a small boat, and then slowly shrouded in thick dark clouds from the sky, accompanied by earth-shattering waves. This is a slowly advancing despair and a helpless defeat. Don't worry, puppy. Vlad smiled, we're not enemies. Don't try to play tricks, intruder. Wanda angrily scolded that human beings are not an acceptable species for fur tribes. Don't think I will let down your guard against you. That's right. Standing behind his partner, the rabbit named Garrett yelled fiercely, don't think about doing whatever you want on this island. Gallet, run. Wanda didn't look back, firmly held the long sword in his hand, and said softly, go back and tell the Duke. Go and tell the Duke about this. Wanda. Garrett was a little stunned. Da. Two big hands gently landed on the heads of the puppy dog and the little rabbit, rubbing gently. I said, "It's not the enemy." Vlad smiled softly and stood behind the two of them. I have to say that Wanda and Garrett's hand feel is not much different from that of ordinary dogs and bunnies, and they are very comfortable. Quote. Garrett and Wanda's eyes widened, and cold sweat immediately appeared on their foreheads. Take us to see Duke Inuarashi. Bring the boss of the cat-bellied snake, to Kazuki's house. Something happened. Chapter 337 Leopard X Dragon. Wearing a red coat with a pattern in the shape of a ring, he is quite tall, with a chubby figure and yellow hair. His name is Cat Belly Snake Boss. Naturally, he is also a cat. The fur tribe has a thick mane around its head, and a huge black and yellow tail protrudes from under the coat, swinging from time to time. X23 US. Com updates fastest. VV's mouth was full of fangs, and there was a deep scar on his face that spread from his left forehead down to where his cheek was close to his jaw. His face was as gloomy as water, and he even looked a little ferocious. He was holding a double-headed three-pronged spear in his hand. Just standing there exuded a powerful aura. Is the boss of the cat-bellied snake, the guardian of the whale forest, the commander of the chivalrous group, one of the two rulers of the furry principality of Elephant Island, the king of the night, the retainer of the Kazuki family, who was once on the ship of Whitebeard, and Roger the guy who has been there. It's been slow enough. Inuarashi, who was riding on a crocodile, had already spoken, with a very mocking tone. Is it because I've been lying down to sleep and my bones have softened again? Although they have known each other for decades, they also followed Kazuki Odin on Whitebeard and Roger's boats and sailed on the sea, but these two guys didn't have a good relationship, or, in other words, at some point in the past, the two were the closest and best friends, but that was a long time ago, and now, they are just two dead enemies. The enemy has reached the point where the king does not see the king, and manages the furry principality day and night separately. If Vlad had not come with a message from the Kazuki family today, these two guys would have to wait until there was something they couldn't resist if they wanted to meet again. It's time for a foreign enemy to invade, and Vlad knows this well. The big sign of the beast pirates that invaded in the original book, Drought Jack, even such a tough opponent did not let these two guys join hands. They still abide by the demarcation of day and night until they were swept away by the angry Jack using poison gas. Then, it was their first meeting in decades. What a disappointment. The boss of the cat-bellied snake is also not to be outdone. I finally came out once during the day, and I saw you, a disgusting stupid dog. Hey. When there were no extra words, there were no extra words to say between the two people. Before the boss of the cat-bellied snake could finish speaking, a black shadow flashed across the air, across the sky, and in an instant, he flew over a long distance. The unsheathed long sword and the swinging dagger collided. Boom. The violent shock wave spread, and the surging power was enough to surprise anyone. Looks like you need to wash your mouth. The swords in both hands were so sharp that the air seemed to have been cut open from above. Stinky cat. It's been so long since I haven't seen you, it's really annoying as always. It's you who should wash your mouth. Stupid dog, if you eat too much shit, you should wash it. The terrifying power was transmitted from the double-headed fork, which directly blocked Duke Inuarashi, and the King of Daylight fell gently into the distance. You two. Just when the swords were drawn, some lazy voices came from one side. If you want to fight, can you fight later? Now is not the time to fight. Vlad stood up swayingly, stretched leisurely, and said so. We didn't come all the way here to watch you play. Crack. Almost at the same time, the eyes of Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake all focused on Vlad. In addition, the Inuarashi musket team in the surrounding trees, and the group of knights behind the boss of the cat-bellied snake, almost all of them, with the weapon in hand, looking at Vlad as very unhappy. Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake do not care about each other. After all, both of them are respected by the fur tribe. Therefore, Vlad's the words angered them. Hey hey hey, so scary. Vlad made a fuss, took 2 steps back gently, and said with some fear, It's like the animals in the safari park. You guy. Behind the boss of the cat-bellied snake, a certain man finally saw Vlad's appearance clearly. He was extremely surprised, and there was even sweat dripping down his face. Oh, I almost forgot, there's a familiar face. Isn't this Pedro? Vlad also noticed the leopard man, smiled and looked very happy. It's been a long time. Pedro, no you. The cat-bellied snake boss looked a little surprised, turned his head and asked his right-hand man, do you know that guy? Well, boss. The man named Pedro is a leopard fur tribe. His left eye is covered by orange hair, but Vlad knows that under the hair is a blind eye. This guy is. Pedro looked at Vlad, his only right eye was full of fear, one of the 4 emperors, a member of the Big Mom Pirates, the son of Charlotte Linlin. Charlotte Vlad. What? Snake and Inuarashi, eyes changed when they looked at Vlad. Auntie is different from Whitebeard, red hair, and her reputation in the New World can be said to be stinky. After all, the guy who started the war at his own will never would be welcome. Hey, I said Pedro, is this guy's information still more than 2 years ago? Vlad smiled, I'm not a member of Big Mom Pirate for a long time. Well, now, let's call me Ferdinand Vlad. By the way, my current identity is. Vlad smiled, Your Majesty Shichibukai. Quote. Shichibukai. Inuarashi clenched the sword in his hand, and the boss of the cat-bellied snake turned around. The atmosphere was even more awkward. After all, the ant is also a pirate in the New World. For cats and dogs who have been pirates, the senses are still better. But, Shichibukai, is under the government. Ooh. The air is cold all of a sudden. Are you going to fight? Vlad smiled, Hey, Pedro, why don't you say a word for your savior? I was the one who saved you from some mad woman. Quote. Pedro was silent for a moment, then said, My personal affairs cannot be compared with the affairs of this country. It's really cold. Vlad didn't care too much. It was more than 2 years ago that he met Pedro. It was on the eve of Vlad's departure from the Big Mom group. Stay, Vlad, adhering to the principle of multiple friends and multiple paths, said a few good words to Pedro when he was judged by his aunt. Pedro, who would have been selected for 50 years of life, was finally selected. 40 years, in a sense, Vlad did save Pedro's life. Well, forget it. Vlad smiled, now that everyone has arrived, I can talk about things too. You may not believe it if you say it, but it's true. The 2 of you, the Kazuki family. It's gone. Chapter 336 Duke X-Boss. What? Wanda. The guy who speaks is also a fur tribe. Even sitting on a chair, he can see his tall body, and his clothes are meticulous. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Like Wanda, he is a canine fur tribe. He has obvious dog characteristics. Compared with Wanda, a dog face is closer to that of a dog. Speaking of which, maybe this is the male fur tribe. The difference with the female fur clan, right? What did you say? Wanda, what did you say? The dog's name is Inuarashi, the daytime ruler of the furry principality, who is known as the Duke of Inuarashi. My lord the Duke. Of course, the person standing in front of him would not be anyone else. Naturally it was Wanda, the puppy who had been in contact with Vlad before. Those 2 people said something happened to the Kazuki family. Wanda looked a little out of breath, and it could be seen that she ran wildly all the way. Tang. Duke Inuarashi stood up with a serious look on his face, what about them? I have no way of confirming their authenticity. Wanda said, that's why I asked Garrett to wait outside town with them. Really? Duke Inuarashi walked to a shelf aside. Wow. A gust of wind suddenly rose in the room, and with the sound of clattering, Duke Inuarashi had a cloak on his back, and a long sword had been hung from his waist. Go, Wanda, go and inform that stupid cat that's still sleeping. Duke Inuarashi said so, and strode out of the room. This is not the time to go to sleep. Yes, Lord Duke. Of course Wanda would not refuse the orders of his own leaders. Inuarashi musket team. Outside the room, Duke Inuarashi shouted, "Let's go." Dash 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 dash. Hey little bunny, why are you hiding so far? Vlad sat leisurely on the tree trunk, with his hands behind his head, and looked at the little rabbit who was hiding far away with interest. Behind a big tree, the petite head poked out from the back of the trunk, staring at Vlad and the samurai Sakata, who had wiped the nosebleed from his face. Come and chat. Vlad smiled. I am also idle. This partner of mine doesn't like talking very much. I am very bored. Come and chat. Don't try to play tricks, I'll keep an eye on you. The little rabbit stuck his head out and shouted loudly, and immediately retracted his head after shouting, only showing above the eyes. Hey, what a cute little bunny. Vlad smiled. Yeah, Nosebleed Warrior. Who is the Nosebleed Warrior? Call me by my name, okay. What's wrong with nosebleeds? This is the most normal physiological reaction of human beings. Mr. Sakata has never been to such a high place. Have you heard of altitude sickness? This is a very reasonable thing to do. Sakata's heart was undulating. A low voice sounded. It seemed like a dull thunder sounded from the distant sky, low and full of power. The temperature dropped suddenly, and something fell from the sky. Crack! An unimaginable thing happened. A big fish fell in front of Vlad, and the huge impact directly made the fish lose its life. This. Sakata's eyes widened. Of course, this country bumpkin guy had never seen such a scene. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The sound of clattering is coming from far and near. Rain is coming. Without the slightest precaution, Vlad, Banshin and Garrett were chilled by the sudden heavy rain. What was even more surprising was that many fishes fell from the sky and fell into the forest from time to time. Quote. Sakata looked dumbfounded, as if he had been stunned by such a sight. I haven't seen it before. Lustful samurai. Vlad opened his mouth freely and said that these rainwater are not real rainwater, but seawater. Although Vlad has not lost his strength yet, his instinct as an ability person still makes him a little disgusted with seawater. This is Zoe's specialty. The fire-breathing rain is a gift of rain. It is an island that has brought life and hope to this island, to the beings living on this island. Vlad smiled. It can be called a rain of gifts. Of course, in the final analysis, this giant elephant under our feet is just taking a bath. Oh. Sakata didn't care what Vlad said at all, and nodded lightly. Right, bunny. Vlad smiled. Although Sakata was always turbulent in his heart, his mouth was a stuffy gourd, and he was not a chat object at all. Don't talk to me, intruder. Rabbit shouted. Oh, it's said that it's not the enemy anymore. Vlad looked a little helpless. This little rabbit really has supervigilance, or rather, a tendon. Don't try to lie to me. Rabbit yelled like that. Okay, as long as you're happy. Vlad said so, sitting up straight. Fortunately, I don't have to chat with you to pass the time now. Boo. A noisy voice came from a distance, and not far from Vlad, the door of the furry principality opened. Boom. With the smoke and dust, something rushed out from it. It was a crocodile. Although it made people feel surprised, it was really a crocodile. There is a guy riding on the crocodile. Of course it can't be someone else. Naturally it can only be Duke Inuarashi, the king of the day in the furry principality. Scoff. Duke Inuarashi didn't do anything special. The crocodile under his crotch stopped. After that, whoosh whoosh. Continuous black shadows flashed by, but in an instant, the trees around Vlad were already filled with all kinds of fur tribes, and countless people were full of vigilance like sharp arrows. His gaze shot towards Vlad and Sakata from all directions. Is that you? Duke Inuarashi did not get off the crocodile. In fact, his hand was already on the hilt of the sword at his waist. The guy who claims to be from Kazuki. Oh, this is Duke Inuarashi. Vlad didn't stand up and didn't pay any attention to the surrounding Inuarashi musketeers. He still sat on the ground leisurely and smiled. It's been famous for a long time. You. Duke Inuarashi was about to say something. No rush, Duke Inuarashi. Vlad waved his hand and smiled. Isn't there a good friend who hasn't come? Really? So there was a strange silence on the scene. No one spoke, and Vlad was able to close his eyes and rest on the tree trunk leisurely. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Fortunately, the awkward atmosphere didn't last long, and soon, on the other side of the forest, the voice of the thin line came over. Just like the replica of the previous Inuarashi musketeer team, it was another group of big cats who had been yellow all the time. Led out of the forest, galloping out. The troop of knights led by the king of the night in the furry principality, the boss of the cat-bellied snake, finally appeared at this moment. Chapter 338 Confrontation. The Kazuki family has been destroyed. Vlad said it in an understatement as naturally as he was describing what he ate this morning. Although what he said was an understatement, it didn't seem like this to the listeners. In fact, Vlad's light words were like a bolt from the blue to Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake. Of horror. You said. The veins on Duke Inuarashi's hand holding the long sword in his hand burst out, and even the fluffy hair can't hide it. What? The cat-bellied snake opened his eyes, but the pupils in his eyes had shrunk to a line, and a sense of danger kept coming out of him. Didn't you hear that? Vlad smiled. He has always been a good man who is helpful and considerate. Of course, he will not fail to meet the simple requirements of Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake. I'm saying. The Kazuki house in Wanokuni has been destroyed. Scoff. Crack. Almost at the same time, two black shadows rushed towards Vlad at a speed that normal humans could not notice. It was Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake. These two guys were no longer suppressed the moment Vlad opened his mouth. Unable to hold the surging anger in his heart, the stranger said casually, of course they would not believe it. Pounced directly towards Vlad. When? With two clear chirps, the attack of the two did not work. Oh, how reliable. Vlad smiled. He didn't shoot, someone shot for him. Of course it wasn't someone else who shot. It could only be his good friend who just got on the boat, the swordsman Sakata, although he was dubbed by Vlad as a lecherous warrior and a nosebleed warrior, and he did have those two titles. Personality, but strength is completely unbeatable. Sakata, who was originally behind Vlad, had already stood in front of Vlad. Vivi was hunched over, the knife in his left hand resisted Duke Inuarashi's long sword, and the name of the famous knife, chrysanthemum in his right hand, was embedded in the double-headed trident of the boss of the cat-bellied snake. Inside the gap of the spear. In the blink of an eye, the attack of two rare powerhouses had been blocked. Stop. Sakata opened his mouth and said, as always, the language is concise, and there is never a lot of words. The two knives on his waist were unsheathed at the same time, and they were blocked in front of Vlad in an instant. At the same time, facing the two strong men who could fight with Droughtjack, one of the three disasters of the beast pirates, it also seemed indifferent. Weak Sakata didn't feel any pressure either, and the indifferent expression on his face was the same as usual. Chi-chi. There was no time interval at all, and the long sword and the double-headed three-pronged spear slammed towards Sakata again with strong force. Without the slightest hesitation, and without the slightest intention to release water, Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake really shot with the determination to kill Sakata. Drink. Sea current. Sakata's eyes froze suddenly, the muscles on the exposed arm suddenly swelled, a powerful force burst out in an instant, the body spun abruptly, and the two knives in his hand met the cat-bellied snake and Inuarashi's with astonishing power. Attack. When? The strong shock wave spread, and the crowns of many surrounding trees actually broke. Well. The cat-bellied snake boss's eyes were extremely surprised, and an extremely astonishing force suddenly came from the knife of the boy on the opposite side. Chi-chi. Two soft clicks, Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake were actually repelled by Sakata at the same time. The double sword style is actually an evil way for the orthodox samurai of Wano-kuni. The reason is very simple. However, this guy Sakata can actually repel two strong men like Inuarashi and Catbelly Snake with one hand. I have to say, it is really amazing. It's all said. Sakata didn't face the panic when he faced the dog Wanda before, and the Juichi character in his right hand resisted on his shoulder, tilting his head slightly. Really, as expected of a cat and a dog, can't you understand what Mr. Sakata is saying? Didn't they say don't come forward? Are they all deaf ears? Really, sure enough, male dogs and cats that have not been castrated are really not competitive at all. Who cares who is stupid? But the strength is really big, bastard. If you don't use the ocean current, you can hardly stand it, and you almost lose face. Stop. Hey, what a rush. Vlad smiled. I never thought cats and dogs could be so grumpy. Fortunately, the strength of my crew is decent, otherwise I wouldn't have been hacked to death. The Duke and the boss of the cat-bellied snake actually. Much more violent than Vlad's emotional ups and downs, it was the surrounding Inuarashi musketeers and the members of the knights, who were already stunned. We actually joined forces. How is this possible? Two people who are clearly mortal enemies actually. And Pedro swallowed his saliva. That guy actually repelled the Duke and the boss who joined forces. What the heck is he? Calm down, Mr. Cat-bellied Snake, Duke Inuarashi. Vlad smiled, although you don't want to believe it, this is indeed the real thing. Just a week ago, the generals of Wano-kuni joined forces with Kaido of the Beasts, one of the four emperors, to attack Kuri. The Kazuki family was wiped out. Mr. Kazuki Oden and his child Momonosuke were both killed by the generals. It's not a lie. Quote. Duke Inuarashi and the boss of the cat-bellied snake did not speak, clenched their weapons and stared at Vlad and the two of them, instinctively reluctant to believe such a thing. Really, is that so? Vlad was not surprised either. After all, he wouldn't believe it if someone who he had never seen before told him the news of the annihilation of all the kingdoms and the annihilation of his brothers and sisters. Well, let me introduce you. Vlad walked to Sakata's side and patted the man on the shoulder, then said, this guy is my new crew member. Before getting on my ship, he was a Wano-kuni samurai. Well, under the tutelage of Kuri daimyo, Kazuki Oden. Vlad said so. What? Duke Inuarashi suddenly moved. What did you say? Human, I warn you. Boss of the cat-bellied snake bared his mouth and showed his fangs. Stop talking nonsense to me. Well. Vlad smiled. Samurai, show it. Who is the color warrior? Jerk. Sakata knowingly put the knife in his left hand on the ground, and held the handle of Kikuichiman with both hands. Sakura scattered. Quote. Sakata gently waved the knife in his hand towards the deserted forest. Woo! The sudden strong wind blew up. Like an illusion, the extremely beautiful scenery suddenly appeared, and countless cherry blossom petals flew in the air abruptly, as if rolling in the wind, swept towards the distant forest. Go! Chi. The cherry blossom petals seemed to exist, just like the sharpest blade. The astonishing **** image appears, the forest in the distance disappears in the blink of an eye, and is smashed by this knife. This is Duke Inuarashi, eyes widened. Master Oden's. The face of the cat-bellied snake boss was full of disbelief. No, take a look, this is what Mr. Kazuki wrote to me. Although it has been blurred by the blisters, you should still be able to see the handwriting of your master. Vlad casually threw the small notebook in his pocket towards Duke Inuarashi, not expecting it to come in handy at this time. Mr. Kazuki won't teach this kind of thing easily. This. Duke Inuarashi grabbed the small notebook and opened it. Tick. Big tears fell from his eyes, smashing heavily on the page, and blooming a sad flower. Master Oden. Chapter 339 The One Who Waits. How? Ding dong. Possessing super strength, In his long life, I am afraid that he has never lost his weapon several times, but now, this super strong swordsman is letting it fall to the ground because he can't hold the weapon in his hand. The huge impact he received instantly disintegrated his entire body strength. At this time, he would not say that he would fight for life and death with monsters like Jack. I am afraid that any Marine soldier could easily stab a knife into his heart. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Master Odin. What? Stupid dog, show me. The boss of the cat-bellied snake on the side has long been impatient, and came over and took the ancient grammar guidebook written by Kazuki Odin from Duke Inuarashi's hand. Hey. The cat-belly snake boss had a very nervous expression on his face, a smile, a genuine smile, and Vivi's trembling, very panic-stricken smile. How is that possible? This bastard must have lied to me. Laughing, the cat-bellied snake boss muttered to himself. Wow. The book was opened, just as Fu Lad said. The book seemed to have been soaked in water, and many of the words on it were blurred and could not be read at all, but not all the words were read. Not clear. Ah. His eyes widened visibly to the naked eye, and unbelievable eyes gradually appeared in his eyes. Although I haven't seen the master's handwriting for a long time, the memory is still very clear, and I will never forget the memories of the time when I was with the master. Although the handwriting is a little blurred, although I don't want to believe such a thing. However, these words were indeed written by the master himself. The cat-bellied snake turned back and forth in his heart, trying to find a reason to deny Vlad's words. Maybe the book is just a fake. But no, the handwriting on this book is indeed Lord Odin's. There may be guys in the world who can imitate other people's handwriting, but those people can't write what's in this book, although it's not very it is clear, but Catbelly Snake knows that what is written on it is about ancient texts, and there is such a thing in the world. Catbelly Snake knows only Kazuki Odin. Could the book be true, but Vlad was lying to him? For example, this book was robbed by the guy in front of him. No, Mr. Vlad was clearly written on the book, and the cat-bellied snake who knew Vlad's name from Pedro's mouth certainly wouldn't think that Vlad was someone else. In addition to the samurai Sakata who used Kazuki Odin's secret swordsmanship, it seems that the evidence has perfectly proved that these two people are really very close to Kazuki Odin. Lord Odin, really? Jingle. Inuarashi's reaction before he could no longer hold the weapon in his hand, and the boss of the cat-bellied snake also looked like he was out of his body for a moment. The big cat who had never shed tears is now wet with tears. How can this happen? In fact, there is also a possibility that Vlad really followed Kazuki Odin to learn ancient characters, and Sakata is also a disciple of the genuine Kazuki Odin, but they lied to them. However, such a possibility was no longer true when Vlad and Sakata were proven to be the people that Kazuki Odin believed. Just like Kazuki Odin believed in Vlad and Sakata, the cat-bellied snake also believed in Kazuki Odin wholeheartedly. Since this man has learned esoteric swordsmanship and more cryptic ancient texts from Kazuki Odin, it is enough to show that these two people are the most trusted people by Kazuki Odin. Are you so sad about the teacher's death? Although they are quite annoying cats and dogs, the only thing that is really annoying is the point of nostalgia. Sakata put the two knives back into his waist silently, and sighed slowly. More than a week has passed. Sakata has accepted this fact, but it is not so easy for a cat and a dog to accept this fact. But to be honest, for Sakata, this kind of feeling is not bad. Some people understand his grief, and some people bear his pain together. This kind of feeling is really not bad. You too, come back to your senses. Vlad walked slowly to the side of the cat-bellied snake, and took the book back from his hand. It was Kazuki Odin's relic anyway, or it was better to hold it by himself. We didn't come to see you cry. Vlad said, although I know this is very bad news and I know you are sad, but... Anyway, listen to us and tell you everything you're crying. Quote. The cat and the dog raised their heads at the same time. Dash 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 dash. Well, that's what happened. There are only 4 people in the large room, or should be said that there are 2 people, a cat and a dog. Of course, it can only be Vlad, Sakata, and Inuarashi. Other than that, there are no other people. Vlad leaned on the soft sofa and said, I didn't win Kaido, and then when Sakata was entangled by the general's subordinates, Mr. Kazuki was attacked by the general because of Momonosuke, and he lost his life like this. Quote. Damn, damn, damn. Bang 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 bang. Quote. The big cat named Catbelly Snake burst into tears, slapped his palms against the wall constantly, and the solid wall smashed one big hole after another. Kaido of the beasts, general. These bastards. Quote. Quote. Also bursting into tears was Duke Inuarashi, sitting opposite Vlad, with his elbows on his knees, his big furry hands covering his eyes. The grief in his heart is not something that tears can express, but tears can be a little bit. To vent a little heart depression. I am going to Wano-kuni. Quote. Catbelly Snake said suddenly, I'm going to kill those 2 guys. In that case. Vlad suddenly said this, with obvious sarcasm in his tone, just say it in front of us. Boss Cat. You said. What? The huge shadow rushed towards Vlad directly. Sakata, who was sitting next to Vlad, instinctively wanted to shoot, but was directly held down by Vlad. Bang. Vlad stood up. Observation Haki was running at full force, and after being beaten by Kaido, his Haki level improved again. Observation Haki was no exception. Level development. It's so slow. Vlad said so, twisting his body gently, avoiding the claws of the cat-bellied snake bluntly, and cutting directly into the bosom of the cat-bellied snake. PFF'd. Vlad pressed his hand lightly on the chest of the cat-bellied snake, and the huge body of the cat-bellied snake was ejected, and was directly smashed by Vlad against the wall, but the wall was not broken. Well, are you kidding me? Boss cat-bellied snake. Vlad smiled, isn't this kind of power trying to find Kaido's death? Quote. Quote. Call. Duke Inuarashi raised his head, his eyes were red and the fur around them was wet. Mr. Vlad, just say what you want to say. He really wanted to hear what Vlad wanted to say, and wanted to hear what this man believed by Kazuki Oden, or perhaps what Kazuki Oden thought, the man the Kazuki family had been waiting for 800 years, wanted to say. Chapter 340 Make an Alliance. The atmosphere in the house was a little awkward. Vlad was obviously a guest, but he beat up the host at the first time. Although this is not the residence of the Knights group, it is the home of Duke Inuarashi, but the boss of the cat-bellied snake in any case. He can be regarded as the ruler of the furry duchy, and he can be regarded as half the master. The boss of the cat-bellied snake did not stand up, sitting with his head lowered and leaning against the corner of the wall, without the slightest movement, as if he was knocked unconscious by Vlad, but Vlad could clearly see that although he was very slightly, but twitching in Vivi, this guy is crying. Mr. Vlad. Sitting on the sofa, Duke Inuarashi raised his head, his eyes were red, but his eyes were indeed a mixture of grief and anger. If you have anything to say, just say it. Duke Inuarashi said, I want to hear your thoughts. Oh. Vlad sat back on the sofa, 2 slender and powerful arms resting leisurely on the back of the sofa, a smile on his face, although at such a moment, at such a sad moment for someone it's not good, but Vlad is a man who keeps smiling all the year round and has gradually forgotten how to achieve other expressions. If I have any ideas, of course I do. Vlad said so. It's not just the 2 of you who want to avenge Mr. Kazuki. It's not just the Fur Clan. Really? Duke Inuarashi nodded lightly and said, does this include Mr. Vlad as well? Of course. Vlad looked very surprised, a little blaming Duke Inuarashi for knowingly asking. No. What? Duke Inuarashi's fluffy dog had a look of surprise on his face. Of course I don't want to avenge Mr. Kazuki. Vlad said as a matter of course, Mr. Kazuki has his own adventures, and it has nothing to do with me. Although he is also my teacher, I have no idea of burdening my life for the sake of others' lives. Quote. You said. The cat-bellied snake, who seemed to be dead, stood up, his eyes were red and murderous, and Vlad's words had indeed angered him. What? Tang! Crack! Sakata stood up, a cold light flashed, and the chrysanthemum character on his waist was half unsheathed, and the icy aura erupted suddenly. Hey, calm down, samurai. Vlad smiled like this, the boss of the cat-bellied snake is not our enemy. Nonsense, of course I know that he is not our enemy. After all, he is a subordinate of the teacher in the past, and his relationship with me is very close, but because of this reason, it would be too unscrupulous to unleash murderous aura on the man I followed. Uncle in the eyes of it. Please be careful. Sakata gently retracted the knife and did it silently. His sitting posture was very strange. He was kneeling on the sofa with his hands on his thighs, which can be said to be very characteristic of a samurai. Your words. Okay, conflict resolved, then the conversation continues. Vlad was giggling, not taking the previous matter to heart at all. Don't get me wrong. I said that I don't want to avenge Mr. Kazuki. It doesn't mean that I'm indifferent to Mr. Kazuki's death. It should be said that I am very sorry and angry for Mr. Kazuki's death. Vlad didn't lie, he did feel sorry for the death of Kazuki Oden. Although he didn't have the slightest affection for Wano-kuni at all, he was not right. Kazuki Oden was indeed the crew member of One Piece, King of Pirates. His courage is by no means comparable to that of ordinary guys in the sea, and he was able to decide to hand over the ancient text to Vlad just by seeing him once. Whether it is strength or courage, there is nothing to say about the hero of the sea. It is this kind of guy who should retire and enjoy life when he ends his adventure, but because of Vlad's arrival, his life ended prematurely. Vlad was very upset, especially since the man who killed him used such a despicable method. Vlad was very angry. However, I will not avenge him. Vlad raised a finger and shook it, making his attitude clear. Mr. Vlad. Duke Inuarashi asked with a frown, what the hell do you mean? It means. Vlad said lightly, I would never change my own life for someone else's life. But. That guy Kaido has been my enemy from the very beginning. It's a matter of not running away. Even if it's not about Mr. Kazuki, I will go to him, of course it goes without saying. And then, General, that guy is really despicable, but he is not my target. I have absolutely no interest in him, even if he killed Mr. Kazuki. You. The boss of the cat-bellied snake is not very good-tempered, but fortunately, Duke Inuarashi has a good temper. He stood up and grabbed the mouth of the boss of the cat-bellied snake, and said. In other words, your target is only Kaido, and the real general who killed Lord Oden isn't your target. Even him, there is some uncontrollable anger in his tone now. After all, Kazuki Oden is also Vlad's teacher. That's right. Vlad smiled, the general isn't my goal because he is the target of this classmate. Vlad patted Sakata on the shoulder beside him and smiled, it's this comrade who wants revenge. No. Sakata said so. Well. Vlad raised his eyebrows, why not? Not revenge. Sakata said, it's to help him atone. If it is revenge, it would be a bit of an insult to the teacher. The teacher does not think that he needs revenge. If Mr. Sakata is still obsessed with revenge for the teacher, then it will be too shameful for the teacher. I don't want to avenge the teacher. I just want that guy to atone for his actions. Ah. Vlad was silent for a while and then burst out laughing wildly, awesome. Samurai, in a short period of time, you have become even more powerful. Humph. Isn't that nonsense? I must become stronger. Is that so? Duke Inuarashi nodded clearly and said in agreement, indeed, Lord Oden would never want others to avenge him, he is the kind of open-minded person. He must only want those who are alive to live well. Really, stinky cat. That is. Cat-bellied snake boss sat cross-legged on the ground, laughing and crying, of course. So. Vlad smiled, this is the basis for cooperation. Vlad smiled leisurely, but what he said was really amazing. The strength of that guy Kaido is terrifying. I can't do it by myself if I want to defeat him now, so. Do you want to form an alliance?